I decided to do a video. I don't know how much long it's going to be. Probably maybe 30 minutes or so. Keep it short. Um, Ted Cruz, you're my boy, right? I know you outside of here. Cool dude. I fucks with him. Pretty nice guy. Ever get a chance to meet him? His parents are real nice people. I just decided, why not go ahead and respond to the whole, him going on vacation when it seemed like, he happens to go on them during the disasters, right? And so everyone's saying, he needs to be here and stuff like that. He needs to be here. I said, all right, well, I'm going to go ahead and respond to the Young Turks. And from there, we'll critique it. So without further ado, let's go.
Texas was getting battered by flooding that obviously took the lives of many dozens of Texans. Ted Cruz was busy, and I would not have believed that this could have worked out the way it did. But he was yet again on vacation. As his state was being racked by another disaster, he was off having fun. In this case, not in Mexico. That would have been too perfect. No, he was in Greece. And he was apparently spotted visiting the Parthenon in Athens with his wife Heidi on Saturday evening. That was, by the way, a day after Camp Mystic announced that more than 20 girls had gone missing in the floodwaters. So that's days after the initial concerns over storms. That's a day after the flooding and the kids are missing. He wakes up. I don't know what he has, eggs or what do they have for Greek breakfast? And then he puts on an outfit. And then he goes to the Parthenon. Maybe he checks in on his phone. Yeah. Still haven't found those kids. Those are some great ruins, man. Look at that. Oh, they're ancient, beautiful. And I'm sure they were. I'm not sure that should have been what he was focusing on at that particular time. But it wasn't just that he was on a vacation. He continued vacationing as his state was once again hit. And he has to remember that he's the guy most notably known as the one who abandoned his state during inclement weather, right? Okay, maybe that's not what he's best known for. It's probably the tweeting out the porn video that he liked. But he's second best known for abandoning his state. And still, did Heidi maybe say, this feels like maybe we should go back? Did one of his kids say, like, hey, you're really getting roasted on social media? He seemed oblivious. He was having a lot of fun with it. And so he was with his family. He had a security guard. Apparently, an eyewitness said to him, 20 kids dead in Texas and you take a vacation. He sort of grunted and walked on. His wife shot me a dirty look. Then they continued on with their tour guide. Now, again, this is an eyewitness account. We don't know if any of that actually happened or if it's accurate. It's also possible that the wife was giving Ted Cruz a dirty look and the guy was just in the line of fire for the dirty look. I imagine Ted Cruz gets a lot of dirty looks. But in any event, you can see a shot of him. And you got some nice stonework in the background. Great ancient history. And look, I love people having the opportunity to go and experience these ancient historic sites. But again, you have a responsibility. I mean, presumably, Ted, when you decided to run for re-election again, it was because you at least were pretending to care about the job, right? Again, I would love one example of Ted Cruz outside of campaign season appearing to care literally at all about being a senator. And I don't just mean in terms of the vacations. The dude doesn't care. Like, you think he's in hearings? You think he's going to, like, committees? You think he's working on legislation, doing constituent work? The dude immediately rushes to a studio any chance he gets to record a podcast. This dude is so utterly disinterested in one of the most amazing jobs you could ever have. He's so bored with it at this point.
Well, that tells you about a lot of these politicians, to be honest with you. He's not the only one that does this. A lot of these politicians, whether it's the left or whether it's the right, they all do the same thing. Why do you think that I strive so hard about talking about term limits? There's a reason why on my channel I talk about this all the time. What do we need? Term limits. Why? Because humans naturally get complacent after being so long in office, and they no longer put the people's interest in front of themselves. In front of themselves. They put themselves before the interest of the people. And that's why I call for term limits, whether it was Congress, whether it was any of the three houses, whether it's the House, the Senate. We need term limits. I've been said this. I've been calling for this. After a while, when you've done your job for so long, you just get complacent, you get stressed out, you get bored. So yeah, sometimes you need a little vacation. I get that. Now, the first one, when it came to the Cancun, that was when we had that great Arctic freeze. I think that was the one in 2021. And Ecrot was receiving all that, criticism for the way that they handled, um, all these people that had died. I think it was around like 60 something people had died, including like a little kid that I heard the story about him, in the car, and there was no AC and no electricity in his house. So he stayed in the car to get warmth and ended up dying, and it was a tragic event. And that's where he got the name Cancun Ted, because as soon as like the storm hit, like not even the next day, he flew to Cancun, if I'm correct, with his friend of his shortly after. And then everybody said, "Yo, why are you leaving us? Like, why'd you abandon us?" Right? Because I'm from Texas, so it even kind of, I was curious about us. I said, why would you leave us? And then he just got all this criticism, and he decided, well, maybe it's a good PR move to come back. And I think it's maybe his PR team might have told him, "Hey, man, why don't you come back? And we'll give you a nice hotel room and a nice jacket." So people were like, "Yeah, he came back and suffered with us." I'm like, "No, he didn't. That motherfucker got probably a decent hotel room." You think those politicians are going to sit there in the cold weather? No, man, they're going to provide security, other than just the security that they're providing for them. But I'm pretty sure that they probably had him in some suite of some sort that had running electricity. He didn't suffer. So, like, it was kind of like a smoke and mirrors thing. Like, he left to Cancun. I understand, the disconnect. And then, but he came back and he was just in a nice warm area while we still kind of just froze to death. But anyways, yeah, I give the Democratic Party credit actually for addressing that, for the Cancun Ted. And still to this day, he never really explained why. I mean, okay, I get it. Maybe the human element came in and he needed to stay warm, so I get it. But maybe it was a bonehead move. Maybe he should have just came out and admitted, okay, I made a mistake. That probably wasn't the, well, what's the word I want to use? That probably wasn't the uh, it probably wasn't ideal for me to do. It probably wasn't the smartest decision for me to do. But, at the same time, um, just making that clear, that I shouldn't have done that. And maybe he should have came out publicly and did that. And whether he did it or not, I don't know, because I've never seen any links or anything as regard to him saying, well, maybe he could have handled things differently. But in regards to this recent vacation, he went to Greece. Look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I know I'm no politician, right? Um, I'm still on my vacation. I'm on vacation till the 18th. I have to return back to work, right? I was in Dallas when that whole floods happened, and it tore me apart. I even made live stream videos on it, which I still have it on my YouTube channel as of recently. I said it was hard for me to focus on things that I enjoyed in life when a lot of these things around the world keep happening. Is the floods the only natural disaster that's happened? Absolutely not. We get hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, war, famine, drought, poverty, mental illness, diseases. I mean, crime rates. I mean, we could sit here and add all these external factors, and that add to the stress factor of our lives. And you can make the argument that they're just equally just as bad as these floods. I mean, there were floods in the Philippines where 600 people died. Did we care about it really over here in the U.S.? No, because it was in parts unknown. It was far away, right? And so it really doesn't affect us until it hits close to home, and that's when you really start asking yourself, could this have been prevented? What can we do to prevent another tragedy like this? And I wish I truly had the answer for it. I don't even know if there was a way that we could have evacuated all those people out of the floods in time, even with the weather service giving them. I just think nobody knew that the water was going to raise 26 feet in, let me look, 45 minutes. You know how, like, that's worse than a hurricane, than the damage of some of these hurricanes that have hit here. I don't think anybody could have possibly predicted that. And, even though Ted Cruz, is he kind of an asshole? Is he kind of discontent? Does he look burned out? Does he look like he needs to maybe let somebody else be senator? Absolutely. But in regards to the vacation argument, I don't think there's no way he could have known. Him being in Greece, you know, he had already invested money and stuff with his family. I've never been to Greece. I ain't gonna lie, I kind of want to go. You know, and he had the opportunity to go and spend time with his family, and you know, this catastrophe happens. I don't think he can snap his fingers and take the private jet back immediately. And even if, let's say, he did come back, I still don't think it will matter anyway, because it's not like him coming back is really going to matter. He'll just be in some hotel somewhere, probably nowhere in the area, and then they'll just be like, "Oh, I'm truly sorry or whatever about what happened." And then people are still, I think, going to complain about him. Oh, well, you should never been on vacation in the first place. And I'm like, but nobody really knew that that was going to happen. These natural disasters. I mean, again, I think Ted Cruz. I mean, I've talked to him before. He's a pretty chill dude. He comes across as kind of arrogant, a little bit to a degree, like a disgruntled prick. But at the same time, like, you know, the Cancun trip, I'll admit that was his fault. I think that was pretty ratherly stupid on his part. I'm using an Obama reference, right? It was ratherly stupid on his part to just bail out during the Arctic freeze in 2021. But at the same time, in this Greece vacation, I think people are going a little bit too overboard on it. Um, again, he can't snap his fingers and say, "Hey, the private jet's coming to take him back." And then let's just say he does come back in 24 hours. Then what happens next is just sort of, it's like, what could he really do that was really going to make a difference? Trump was here, for example, in the United States, and he didn't even come down to the Texas area, I think, until what, yesterday? Am I correct? Or today? Well, what's the day today? Today's the 13th, right? Hey, what's up, Brian Seven? Today's the 13th, right? Trump, I think, barely just came down to Texas either yesterday or today. So if the floods happen on the 4th, if I'm correct, right, or the 3rd going into the 4th, right? Um, Trump didn't come until a week, and he was here the whole time in the United States. He just spent Naomi or whatever down here to talk, and she completely botched the whole thing. The whole press conference, she kind of botched it, and it kind of made the Republican Party look really bad. It really, you got, Ted's already in hot water, right? And then you got her kind of botching the press conference, not really engaging or being thoughtful or anything like that, and just giving some pity party speech that was just, it was just terribly put together. Maybe short notice, but still, it was just a disaster. And then, of course, Trump not coming till what, yesterday or today to Texas to kind of look around and see the disaster sites. It's like really kind of show that he really could have gave two fucks less. I'm just being honest with you. I mean, why can't we just call for like we see it? He could have gave two shits less. But then again, I'm not blaming him either for the tragedy, but at the same time, he didn't give a fuck. And it's like, does it really matter if those politicians are at the site or not? At the end of the day, they really don't care. Why do you think that I call for term limits? That's why everybody says you call for term limits a lot. I'm like, you goddamn right, I call for it. It should be no more than 12 years for the House, for the Senate, and for what? Congress and any other government position. 12 years tops. There's no such thing as a lifelong politician. I don't want to hear it. There's no such thing as a career politician. It's nothing more than legalized money laundering and stealing. Okay, so let's just keep that 100. It should just be 12 years, and that's it. No more. You should just be able to run, and that's it. You're gone. No more of this. I mean, if you look at these politicians, like a lot of them are worth a lot of money, and you got to look at their salaries. It's like, okay, so your salary says that you made, let's just say 400,000, or let's just say 200,000 a year, but your net worth says you're worth 200 million, 400 million. Well, the math's not adding up. Even with 50 years of service, wouldn't even equate to that much, or even near it, not even half or a quarter of that. So how would you explain all this money being allocated? It seems like to me they're stealing money. It seems like they're stealing money. They're stealing tax dollars. It's nothing more than just legalized money laundering. That's all it really is in a nutshell. It's just legalized money laundering. And it's That's why I call for term limits. It would stop this fucking corruption. But what do you expect when you see the same names on the ballot every 2 years? Yeah, like Mitch McConnell runs again in Kentucky every year, it seems like, and he just goes against some third Green Party guy, and he just unanimously gets the vote. Sounds like a little dictatorship going on in that little state right there. It would seem like it doesn't. Just see the same names appearing on the same ballots. Something ain't adding up, and then not to mention the fact that we don't get to vote on the things we want to vote for, like for example, elimination of property taxes. Let's go ahead and eliminate the state tax. Let's go ahead and vote to eliminate the income tax and impose a flat tax, like Rand Paul suggested. And it would save Americans 60 to 80% on the tax dollar. So instead of your dollar being taxed over and over and over again, you would see what? What would you see? Savings. But no, that's why I said let's vote for Rand Paul and not for Donald Trump. But nobody listened to me. They're like, oh no, we never vote for fucking Rand Paul. He's a piece of shit. But his tax plan made more sense than Donald Trump's. And that's what I was trying to explain to everybody. I said it makes more sense to put Rand Paul in office. He would have eliminated most of these taxes, imposed a flat tax at 10%, and Americans would be saving 60 to 80%. If you eliminate the income tax, the average American saves $600. So you can invest that money into your local mom and pop stores. But I keep forgetting all those places are closing up. Again, I'm gonna be honest. Look, I voted for Trump twice. I said this first and simple. I did not vote the last election, but 2016, 2020, I did vote for Trump. This last election, I did not vote. I was going to vote for Rand Paul. That's why I wanted to win the election. Donald Trump, and listen, when it comes to him, the enforcer to get other countries to listen to him, I'll give him credit. He's good at that. He has this authoritarian to him, you better do what I say or else. He kind of reminds me of George W. Bush, the Bush family. They were kind of like that, the enforcers. In fact, Trump kind of reminds me a little bit of Barack Obama too. There's some similarities there when it comes to the deficit, But in reality, Trump only cares about, and this is just the reality of it. He only cares about corporations and foreign investors. It seems like to me, and maybe some domestic, but most importantly, probably billionaires that are lining his pockets and corporations. He doesn't really care about the rest of us, and it's not to be a dick. It just is what it is. Like I'm not gonna be angry about it. I kind of see it for what it is. If that kind of makes sense. And so that's why I said, we need to vote for a candidate that's going to be more in touch with us. And who's that guy? Rand Paul. But people are like, well, he's not really that popular. I'm like, it doesn't matter if he's not popular or not. It matters his fucking plan. The fucking plan was to cut taxes. We don't always get what we want. If you eliminate the income tax and impose a flat tax, the average American would have higher tax liability. 250 billion. The dude in Greece came back to propose 250 billion Israel before going to Texas. That the thing about Trump is that the big beautiful bill, like we'll go to that. And so everybody said, what do you think about the big beautiful bill? And I'm like, look, I'm gonna be honest with you. Not too many jobs even offer 40 hours a week anymore, let alone overtime. So unless you work for a job that just gives you that overtime, it would benefit you, but it's not the majority of Americans. It's probably like maybe 10% of the American population that get overtime would benefit from this. And then, the no tips on restaurants, as someone who used to work at a restaurant and as someone who supports restaurants and all, and working for tips and all that, I'm all for that. But let's just be honest, who really eats at restaurants anymore? Right, because everything has gone up, the quality of food has gone down, very understaffed, not highly trained people. And so or not enough trained people, let me just put it like that. And so what happens now is it's all about location. So if you're a restaurant that's located in a good area, predominantly higher middle income, you're going to benefit as a waiter or waitress. For example, you work in a casino and they got restaurants in there. I went to Toby Keith's. Those waiter waitresses are making good money. But let's say if they're open up down the street, they're not going to really make much. So unless you're in a position where that restaurant happens to be in a really good neighborhood, upper middle income, they got the money to spend, most of these restaurants out here are just tanking. And it's unfortunate because back then, what food used to be cheap, it was affordable, and you get what you pay for. And even if you bought like food on the cheap end, it was still good. Like you still got a good bang for your buck. It was cheap, affordable. You can go out to eat. It was considered a luxury. Now it's not even a luxury anymore. Now everything has just gone up, and then oh, don't forget you got to leave a tip, and it's like now your average spending cost has increased by 25%. And so then everybody kind of loses because you lose the customers. They're not coming in to eat at the restaurants anymore, or they're not coming as much, or they're not buying as much. And then that also affects the tips that these waiter and waitresses are receiving. So when you look at Trump's bill, it's almost like a kind of a smoke and mirrors bill, if that kind of makes sense. It's kind of like, well, you don't have to pay overtime and you don't have to report your tips, but it's like, how are they making any tips, Trump? These people are not making any tips. They're not hardly making anything because most of the restaurants are fucking failing. It's, excuse my French, but it's like, it's just like he keeps going on this, no tips. You don't have to report your tips. I'm like, and I used to work at Buffalo Wild Wings, right? So I went there the other day. And they were telling me that they were only making like 10 to 20 bucks a day. I'm like, what the hell? Like, why would you even want to be a waiter or waitress in this time unless you worked in a really good location? Like I said, it's, the restaurant industry has definitely been affected by this. And so, what does this bill benefit these people? It doesn't. I mean, now if you're probably working at, let's say, a high-end restaurant, maybe I could see it working out for them. Don't have to report your tips or whatever. And then let's say the overtime that people are working, like let's say if they're working at a chemical plant or they're working like, somewhere where they're just getting massive overtime, like the tough jobs and the construction and stuff like that, I could possibly see it working out for them. But as for people in retail, people working, in the restaurant industry, or people working here, they're not really gonna see any difference. It's not going to benefit them because it's like they can't even get 40 hours, let alone overtime. These guys are getting like part time. And it's like, so that's why like when I look at that bill, I'm like, okay, I just see it benefiting like 10% of Americans. Again, it goes to the whole corporation ideal. It's just like, I'm not angry at Trump. I don't hate him. I just understand that he's a businessman at the end of the day, and his decisions are only going to benefit the very top. And it's sort of like, okay, well, if that's the case, and 90% of Trump voters don't even benefit from his goddamn legislations, then why the fuck should I vote for him? And that's the reason why I did not vote in this last election at all. I didn't vote for him. And that's why a lot of people ask me, and I told you, I explained it to you. If his legislation doesn't benefit me, how did he earn my vote? So if 90% of Trump voters don't even benefit from the legislation, then what's the fucking point of putting him in office? It makes no sense. If that's the case, you should have just kept Joe Biden in there. Sad to say. You should have just kept Biden in office. I mean, I'm just, being honest. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to go off the rails here. I want to keep it professional, so I'm going to try to keep this professional as possible. Let's go continue.
So anyway, he apparently landed in Athens on Thursday. So just to be clear, it's not like if he'd woken up on Saturday and had to rush back, oh, I didn't get to vacation at all. He'd already been there for more than a day. No, he demanded more vacation instead of returning to help out his state. He apparently talked to, Dan Patrick did his press conference. So again, there's all these updates where he could have theoretically known what was going on. He got back on a plane to Texas on Sunday. He completed his whole day in Athens, his second full day in Athens. He goes to the Parthenon, he goes to all this stuff the next day. Now, they, like with Trump, are doing damage control. And so his communications director says it's a bull-ass piece published by a bull-ass rag outlet with no credibility and with no regard for the tragedy in Texas. I think we've already covered who doesn't have any regard for the tragedy in Texas.
Well, we already know these politicians don't give a shit about us. Which is why I'm ready to do away with the two-party system. Red, blue, it's all bullshit. In fact, I've accused Trump of being a Democrat plant. And people have called me crazy for that. And I said, well, if you look at his legislation, it looks like a bunch of Democratic bipartisan legislation. Like, for example, not repealing HR 5181, not repealing HR 57 or 5736, which gave the internet and these tech companies power to censor people. He had a chance to repeal all that shit back when the Republicans owned the House, the Senate, and the fucking Congress back in 2017. What did he do instead? He allowed the Democrats to take over the House. He allowed the Democrats to control half the fucking Senate. And he allowed the Democrats to take control of Congress. And essentially, he couldn't pass any legislation. It's like, dude, you had the opportunity in 2017 to repeal these legislation. You had an opportunity to do that. You fucked it up. That's why I said the first 2 years of Trump, I think he did a very good job in his first term. The last 2 years, he bombed it completely. And I receive a lot of plaque for that, but that's true. And guess what? I still went and voted for him the next election. So it didn't impact my decision at the time. I just acknowledged that he fucked up big time the last 2 years of his legislation. First 2 years, he was on a hot horse. The taxes weren't too bad. The economy was booming. I'll give him credit for that. But the last 2 years, he fumbled the ball very badly. But I still voted for him in 2020. I still voted for him, in 2020. And then that whole shit went down or whatever. And all the allegations that went down, was the election fair, this and that. I'm not willing to go into that because I really don't know. But what I will say is that when it came to this whole COVID bullshit, which they said, hey, let's go ahead and close everything down. Don't worry about it. We'll keep it closed. No big deal, right? Everybody blames Joe Biden for that ordeal, by the way. They said it was Joe Biden's fault. He should have never closed this country down. I'm like, man, I hate to hurt your feelings there, but it technically wasn't Joe Biden that closed it down. It was Donald Trump, technically. It was towards the end of his term. If you go and you look at Dr. Fauci, for example, and the letterhead, the signature on it was Donald J. Trump. It was not Joe Biden's signature. And Donald Trump was the one that stood next to Dr. Fauci and said, yeah, let's go ahead and close the country down. If you're not ruled essential, blah, 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 we'll go ahead and get those COVID checks. The first check of those three was signed under Donald Trump, was not signed under Joe Biden. But of course, nobody will ever admit that because, of course, if you're going to defend your guy, you got to defend your guy. I used to be that kind of guy. Defend your guy all the way. Deny, deny, deny. And now I kind of look at it from the outside in and say, okay, I acknowledge that this was the mistakes that Trump made. Yes, I did vote for him in 2020, even though he made those mistakes and fumbled the rock the last 2 years of his presidency. But at the same time, Trump did, he did do some good things for the country. I'll admit that. But what he fumbled the ball on the most during this COVID thing was, listening to Dr. Fauci, standing next to the Democrats and saying, yes, we need to go ahead and keep this country closed, blah, 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 rule essential, 50 feet, blah, 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 blah. And then he says, well, no, don't take the shot. I'm not going to take the shot and blah, blah, blah. And then he ends up taking the shot. He took the Pfizer's shot, the same one that I ended up taking 6 months after I kept saying I wasn't going to take it. And after catching COVID 3 times, I got sick of it. So I just was, I'm going to go ahead and take the shot. Now, the shot did work for me. It may not work for anybody else. Everybody has different symptoms or their body reacts differently. So everybody has a different experience. But for me, it worked because when I caught it the fourth time, it wasn't as bad. It was just mild symptoms. So for me, it worked, but I can't say it would work for everyone because everyone's body is different. That makes sense. So, yeah, Trump's idea, it's his idea to close this country down. And it's like everyone's blaming Biden. I'm like, no, actually, it was Trump, and he printed up the first stimulus check, by the way. And those and by the way, the unemployment COVID checks that were going to come back to bite us, Trump printed those checks out, not Biden. Biden printed out the second and the third check and then increased the benefits. But other than that, the banks were going to hit us, printing all that money out. They wanted 8% interest on the first stimulus. Then after that, they wanted up to 12%. And then not to include when we had to fund other countries in their wars, that was going to put inflation at possibly 6. You're looking at hyperinflation. This is not good. It's not good, man. This was a terrible idea to shut this country down. And a lot of these businesses closed up for good. It completely slammed the middle class. And so now you just seem like to me like we're just eliminating the middle class and you're just going to have a bunch of corporations are just owning everything. That's why I said we need term limits. Because like if you think of it like this logically, right? No one can really run for president unless you're like a billionaire who has connections, right? So what does Donald Trump have? Connections. What does Joe Biden have? Connections. Oh, Barack Obama, George Bush, Bill Clinton, all those guys, they'll have connections. And so what that means is that they're billionaires that have connections through their donors who are particularly probably large corporations, investment firms, this, and that. And so they're funding their campaigns for them to run. And so, okay, we're going to fund you, but in return, you have to fight for what we want, which is XYZ legislation, this, and that. Well, to me, this doesn't really benefit the American people because it's like, well, what about us? What about our vote? What about our voice? What about our say? What about the things we want to see get done? And it's sort of an absentee to these politicians. They're sort of absentee when it comes to what the middle class and the lower class wants, or even the upper middle class. It seems like to me like they only care about, investors that are either foreign or domestic or large corporations that are just land grabbing at this point, crashing the stock market, using the real estate market to sort of take all the territory, borrowing money against their assets from the banks, with low to zero interest rates, creating cash flow and benefiting. Man, this sounds like legalized money laundering to me. But, of course, when I bring that up, people will comment, shills, trolls, whatever. They'll say, oh, you sound like a socialist. You sound like a socialist for me wanting to take your subdivision, for me wanting to own your entire subdivision. See, I'll tell you how real estate became a big scam, right? It used to came you want to buy a home and own it. You want to flip a couple houses and you want to make a little bit of cash flow, right? Now corporations got involved. This happened about 10 years ago, by the way. And so they got involved in real estate. So what they'll do is they'll go to these old neighborhoods out here, right? And this is like for example, like in Houston, we got all the wards: Fifth Ward, First Ward, Third Ward, Fourth Ward. Those are some of the oldest neighborhoods in Houston, right? These houses are old. I'm talking about built in the 1940s, 1930s. So what they'll do is they'll say, okay, they'll build up, they'll buy a home from somebody who's probably selling it off or whatever. They'll build it and they'll turn it into a big giant duplex or a big giant mansion like house. I'm talking about like 3 stories and this. You'll see a 3-story house in the middle of a neighborhood that's like almost run down. And so what are they doing? This is just the biggest fucking scam in real estate. So what they're doing is these investors are buying, or these corporations are buying that house. It raises up everyone's property taxes around the subdivision. So if you I take it those people who are in those homes are probably most likely either poor, which most likely are, or they're probably too old and they can't work anymore, so they're living off of their Social Security. Okay, so if their Social Security are making $1,500 to $3,000 a month, but your property taxes, the maintenance cost is going up, your HOA fees are going up, all these fees are going up, right? So what they're doing is the biggest scam. So what they're doing is they're pushing people out of their homes, right? So when all these elderly people are like, well, shit, I can't afford this anymore. I can't afford the tax increase, the property tax increase. I can't afford the HOA costs that are rising. I can't afford all the maintenance costs. The light bills going up, this going up, this going up, rents going up, or let's just say taxes in general are going up, or the cost of food's going up. So, and the healthcare has gone up. The interest rates have gone up on their credit cards. So they're looking at this and saying, okay, can I still be able to afford to live in this despite the fact that I've retired and earned that right to retire? Well, they got to sell that house. Well, who do you think's going to buy the house? Because nobody's buying houses on the market right now. Not individual people, unless they're renters. But they're not necessarily renting. So who's buying them? Either whoever owned that duplex is waiting for the neighborhood to sell, and they're going to come, which is most likely a corporation. It's probably BlackRock or State Street or any of these other investment firms that are just waiting, whether it's foreign or domestic. They're just waiting in the limbs, and they're buying the whole subdivision up. Is basically owned by one corporation or maybe 2. And they own the entire subdivision now. And it's bullshit. It's bullshit. And so what they're basically doing is they're buying up all of it. They're going to tear all those houses down. They're going to build them into giant duplexes. And then it's going to raise the property value of those houses. So, like, let's just say, for example, 20 years from now, the boomer generation will die off. 20, 25 years from now. So you're going to have 20.8 million homes, 21 million homes on the market available for sale and nobody's going to be able to buy them because the average house is possibly going to be $500,000 or even higher. So you're looking at $2,500 to possibly $4,000 monthly payments. Monthly payments. Who's going to be able to afford that? So you most likely are going to have to rent. And I love it how guys like Grant Cardone and all these guys will say, "Oh, don't buy a fucking house. Don't buy a house. Why you want to own a house? They give it and get on the cash flow." Because they basically want you to rent from them. They want to own the whole fucking thing, the whole store, the whole property, the whole subdivision. That's what they want. They don't want you to own a house because they want to be able to own the rights so they could throw you out whenever they want to, and they could dictate the price in the market whenever they can raise it, whenever they damn well please. This isn't what real estate was supposed to be. This wasn't not what it was supposed to be. And corporations got involved about 10 years ago. I knew this was going to be a problem. I knew this was going to be a problem. And so it's just going to drive up the cost of these houses now, and people can't afford the motherfucker. So we all become renters, aka the Great Reset of 2030. So I was explaining, man, again, and so you can't even talk about it on YouTube because, of course, shills will come in and say, "Oh, well, you're a socialist for saying that." I'm like, no, you're an oligarch. That's the reality of it. You're an oligarch. You just want to own the whole thing. You want to be dependent on you, and that's what you're doing. I'm the fool for calling it out, and so I'm the socialist for simply calling out the fucking obvious. This is what's happening. And I explain this to people all the time. They get mad at me. I'm like, I bet you won't say what I'm saying is wrong about BlackRock is stealing all the fucking property out here. Bet you won't tell me I'm wrong for that. But I'm the socialist? Okay. Just for simply calling this out, is this capitalism? No, it's not. It's not even capitalism anymore. It's just a bunch of fucking oligarchs just stealing all the property and using the tax code, using the banks to borrow money against their assets, and using politicians in their back fucking pockets to do so. Real estate right now is not what it used to be back in the 70s or 80s. Not even close. The ability to buy a home is almost obsolete now. You would be lucky if you could buy a home in today's market. Unless you're well equipped, your pockets are well equipped, and you're either part of a corporation, investment firm, or you get lucky. To me, it just seems like the average American is not going to have the ability to own a home in, let's say, 4, 5, 10 years. It's crazy. This is insanity. But people will tell me, "Well, that sounds like a socialist thing for you." I'm like, really? But tell me what I'm saying is wrong. I'm not a socialist, but tell me what I'm saying is wrong. I believe in true capitalism. In order for us to compete in the market, I don't believe in land grabbing, and I don't believe in using the banks to my leverage to weasel people out of their homes so you can buy the entire subdivision. I don't believe that's not capitalism. That's just you using the tax hole loopholes to steal land from people. This is what they say, "Oh, well, there's zoning laws." I'm like, where's the zoning laws at? There's something not right with this picture. For example, if I wanted to buy property in China, right? Let's just say hypothetically, I wanted to go buy a house or whatever. Or let's just say I wanted to own a duplex in China. According to my research, you had to be a Chinese citizen, correct? But yet they can come here and buy property. So make that make sense. So they can come over here and buy property, but I can't buy property on their territory. Now you make that make sense. That doesn't make any fucking sense. And so it just, the thing is it's just the way that the laws are set up, it needs to be revised. I say let's put a limit as to how many units or condos they can buy. And I can also say let's change the LLC laws to not give them the ability to have different 8 names on the damn LLC so that they can have the ability to buy unlimited amounts of property. We need to change this. Because I'm telling you, it's not gonna end well. By 2030, 2035, you're going to look at just all the homes being owned by some corporation. This is not what real estate was supposed to be. It started off in the 70s, 80s, and 90s of people just buying and flipping homes. That's all it was. And now corporations got involved and they completely ruined the market. But oh no, I'm the socialist, right? Because, I brought up the obvious, what they're doing. But I'm the socialist, right? But the corporations want to own the entire subdivision, the entire state. That doesn't make any sense to me. And they're not paying any taxes on any of the property because they're just using the cash flow and it's not being reported as income. So it just, none of it makes sense to me what is happening. But when you got politicians in their back pockets and you got these laws that are being written in place, Donald Trump, for example, he has a lot of his hands are all in real estate, and he's never going to repeal or put any stipulations as to how many units condo because he has a lot of investments in real estate and his hands are tied by the banks. So he knows that he has to play ball. He has no choice. And it kind of goes against the American people because it's like, you see this land grabbing going on and you're like, you see it before your eyes. And it's like, okay, so why don't we go and repeal this? And he's like, well, I'm not going to do that. Well, we know why, because your hands are tied by the banks because the banks own you. And so therefore he can't really do anything at this point. That's why I said we should put Rand Paul in office to have true repeal tax for him, not Donald Trump, who only cares about oligarchs. And I'm going to be honest, even as a Republican myself, as conservative views, I can even sit here and come to terms with that. I want, somebody in office that can have more of a connection with the everyday person to person, not somebody who just wants to help his billionaire friends out and help his corporations out. I'm sick of that shit, dude. Rather it's left, right, up, down, what. I'm tired of it, bro. I'm tired of seeing these politicians that are being funded by these investment firms, these corporations. You automatically know what their campaign is all about. All you got to do is just look up whatever the corporation's thoughts and views on how they see fit to how the country should be run. And then when you see these politicians are backing them up, that's kind of where it's swaying to. And that's where, I kind of like, okay, so then what's the point of just the average person going to the polls and voting? Is this just smoke and mirrors? Does this really mean anything? Do we need to actually do away with this two-party system? Because it seems like to me it's just for the top 10%. And I'm tired of it. So let's just go ahead and just do away with the red versus blue shit. Let's just, whatever you want to call it, Republican, Democrat, let's just get away from that and let's go ahead and start some sort of new tier system. In fact, I've even called, maybe I'm going overboard, this may sound a little un-American for me to say, why not just go ahead and not vote in the next election and nobody goes to the polls? So, of course, you're still going to have some people that'll probably go to the polls. But if most people listen and say, let's not go to the poll, let's not put that vote in, let's make the voter turnout rate go lower, maybe then they will start to see, okay, well, why is this problem? Because we don't get to vote on anything we want to do. We don't get to vote on any of the people on the ballot that we want to see fit. The same names keep appearing on there. You want to give tax breaks to large corporations. You want to allow them to land grab and steal. You want them to crash the stock market. You want them to own everything, and you want us all to become renters and own nothing and like it. And we're tired of it. We're sick of it. So it's either, you start tending to the needs of what most of the people in this country want, or you're just going to have to suffer the consequences in a large voter turnout rate. And people are going to be more or less likely to hit those polls and say, let me go ahead and cast my vote, all Republican ticket, all Democratic ticket, half Republican, half Democrat, whatever you feel best. You may vote for some Republicans for these certain positions, and then you may go Democrat with these positions, but all together, I would just say, let's just go ahead and just not vote, not participate, and let them suffer at the polls, and then have them try to come up with some kind of lie as to why that's the case and just sit back and laugh. Because it seems like to me that your votes only matters for numbers, but it doesn't matter on the impact. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't matter on the impact. These problems are still going to occur regardless. And it's like, okay, well, if that's the case, then really it doesn't matter if I submit my vote in. Does it really matter that I have to run down to my local school down here, local library, or whatever they're hosting little polls or whatever? Does it really matter? No, it doesn't. It's just all for show, basically. It's just like a basketball game that you're attending. I wouldn't even really call it that, because at least you get to sit for an hour and watch them play. This one, you're just kind of waiting in long lines anyway. People are huffing and puffing, and then you finally, when it's your time to go and vote, after an hour or two of waiting in line, you're just gonna vote. They're gonna give you a little sticker that says "I voted." You'll post a screenshot on Facebook, and then you just go in your car and head back, and it's just another. It seems like to me like another day. And I'll tell you this right now, I think the nail in the coffin for Trump that's going to divide Trump fans, and this is where you're actually going to see that divide start. This is another prediction of mine, is you're going to see it with the fact that he did not release the Epstein files. We call it the X files, but the Epstein list. And I think that's a terrible mistake on his part. You said the papers are on my desk. All the Republicans are holding copies of it, and now they're saying it's bullshit. It's like, we're not going to show it. I think that right there is going to, you're going to have half Trump supporters are probably going to be pro-Trump no matter what, defending him, and that's okay. I expect that. And then you're going to have the other half are going to be like, no, he needs to show the Epstein list, and no, he told us that he was going to get. And I'm on that side. I'm on the side where it's like, no, you need to abide by your word. You need to show the Epstein list, and you need to abide by that word. You didn't do that. Property tax on private property is unconstitutional. Absolutely, I agree. A harmful form of taxation enforce forms of taxation that encourage growth. Land value tax, lower income tax, and no corporate tax. I agree with the no corporate tax. Like I said, I think at the end of the day that these politicians, they don't really care, and I think the human element pops into where they've just worked there for so long. It's like they're just probably burned out and don't care anymore. It's just you've done politics for so long, 40 years, 50 years, right? So you've done politics for so long. To me, it just gets to a point to where it's just like, you show up to work, you argue, and then you kind of get a check. It's sort of like what you would do at your job if you were working there for 20 years, right? You're probably ready to leave, and you're like, well, I like the money, and it's like, well, I want to stay a little bit more, and it's like, I'm kind of enjoying the vacations and the benefits. It's like, you sort of get complacent. And that's why I say, but the difference between like our jobs down here is it's not like we're writing legislation that's changing the outcome of people's lives or enhancing people's lives. Like they're in position of power to where they can write laws and legislation and be able to dictate their decisions made would be able to dictate what other people's lives um, and so I think that they're in a position where it's a little bit more important than, let's say, your average grocery sacker, cashier, or somebody in construction. Not to say that those jobs aren't important, but just as if in comparison, that their jobs, what is your decisions as a politician is going to impact my life more than my decisions on my job, if that makes sense. Or like you guys that are watching, like your job, right? So that kind of makes sense. Chipper Strader for all that on the list. Yeah, we should have been able to get the Epstein file. I think it's a travesty that Trump did not release those forms. He has the forms on his desk. We know the forms are there. It's no, we're not stupid. And they say, well, if we release the forms, it's going to put a more division on this country, and then y'all are probably going to demand justice for, these people who attended these parties. And I'm like, okay, so what's wrong with that? You don't see the country's not already divided. You don't see how the collapse of the dollar is already happening. You don't see the takeover of AI and real estate. You don't see people are losing their jobs left and right. You don't think the country's not already divided enough? Does it really matter? No, it's because the people that are on that damn list hold some sort of high importance. Rather, they're part of corporations, billionaires, celebrities, whatever the case is. And by you not releasing those files, you're basically telling all of us that it doesn't matter if anything criminally was done. It's just we don't want to divide the country up any further, and we don't want these rich people pulling out and moving on somewhere else by calling them out here. And I'm like, well, I thought that, correct me if I'm wrong, that the criminal justice system, when it comes to the judicial, when it comes to the courts, are blind to people based on economical status or, color, religion, race, whatever, that long list that they have under that oath. I assume that it didn't matter how rich you were, that no one was above the law, or at least that was what I thought I believed. Maybe they are above the law. Maybe there's some I don't know. Maybe um, there's different rules for different people, and maybe y'all should just do away with the oath and just say, well, no, that's not entirely accurately true, because by you not releasing those files, and assuming that we don't know the extent of what the crimes were done and against who, probably were against children, and it's like, don't you think that they should be answered for that? And let's think about that. Don't you think that they should be answered by that? Think about it. I'm just saying, let's be honest. Well, I tell you this, man. Politics is definitely can be very stressful when you put too much into it. Um, like I said, I didn't vote for this last election. I didn't vote. I completely uh, didn't vote at all. Um, Now, I'll tell you what's even scarier. Bondi wasn't Trump's first pick. No, of course not. Matt Gaetz was, but Bondi is a placeholder until August. If she resigns, Trump can appoint Gaetz. Yeah, probably. I'll tell you this right now. What was I going to say? Damn it. You know what's even scarier is after this election is over and we have to go into 2028. Just what I predict is going to happen, because people have been asking me. So, what do you think? The candidates are going to be in regards to who's running, who's going to run, right? And I don't think the candidates are going to be very much better. In fact, I think they may even be worse. And to me, the only name that pops up on the Democratic Party is Gavin Newsom, and I'm not a fan of him at all. Not a fan of him at all. Um, he's ran California completely into the ground. The taxes there are completely abysmal, and he's completely arrogant, and he's very stubborn, and he dodges questions, and he dodges people's voices, concerns of the state of California. And so now you're going to get a guy that's disconnect, stubborn, egocentric, and now you're getting him to run as part of the left, or run as the left candidate. And then for the right, there's only really a couple of names that pop up, but probably they're Vivek Ramaswamy, who just quotes Obama most of the time, or you're possibly going to get um, uh, JD Vance. Like, to me, that when I narrowed it down to Republican candidates, they probably have a little bit more choices than, let's say, the Democratic Party. I think they're just narrowed down to maybe a couple. But I think JD Vance is most likely going to be the one running for the Republican Party. And for the left, it's going to be Gavin Newsom. And that's my prediction. I hope I'm wrong, but I hope I'm wrong. But what it looks like, either Gavin Newsom or AOC, but I don't think AOC will beat Gavin. I think Gavin Newsom will probably most likely be the number one candidate in regards to that Democratic, because I can't think of any other Democratic candidate who has the same notoriety that Gavin has. I'm not saying it's the right reason, but I'm just saying it seems like to me, if you want to go the Joe Biden route, you're going to run Gavin Newsom to run the Democratic Party. And that's, I don't even know where I want to begin to go with that. I think that's it's a terrible move. But I mean, what are your options really at that point? You don't really have any other options, to be honest with you, for your Democratic Party. who are you going to run? And Gavin Newsom seems like maybe the only guy that his name is more in the paper than any other candidate in there. I don't think AOC will run. And for the Republicans, well, you might have a list of like four guys, you know, but it's going to come down to, I think Trump will endorse Vance. I think that's what's going to end up happening, and he's going to say, okay, well, endorse my candidate. He has my beliefs, sort of ordeal. Endorse this, endorse this. So, it's like a protege. It's like what Obama did with Biden, or what Obama did with Hillary. He's like, this is my protege. He was part of my team. It's sort of like, you know what I mean? It's like when you have a new job and let's say like they're laying you off and they're like, oh, well, I'm bringing all my guys, like let's say a company bought another one out and you're part of the company that got bought out. And so they're like, oh, okay, well, we already brought our own guys and we don't really need you. And it's sort of like that. It's sort of like he's coming in with his own guys that are probably like underpaid or part of their protege that's going to listen, like be yes man kind of thing. And I think that's sort of what JD Vance is going to be, is that Trump's going to be like, I'll endorse you, but you have to carry my policies. Okay, fine. That's easy. Hell, I was already vice president under you anyway. So why not just go ahead and just continue that? And so he'll have JD Vance run as the Republican side, and then Vivek Ramaswamy most likely will be the vice presidential candidate. I don't think that Ron DeSantis will run. I don't think he's there yet in terms of taking that next step from the governor. It's sort of like Jeb Bush. He kind of reminds me of Jeb Bush. He's a good governor for his state, but I think beyond that, on the federal level, national level, I don't necessarily know if I'm ready. I don't think he's ready at that point. I think that Ron DeSantis sort of bombed the Republican National Convention. I think he completely bombed it. And that's okay. Maybe he's just not fit to be a president on that massive scale. So it seems like to me like Vivek is kind of like, will endorse Trump. Trump will endorse him as VP. JD Vance will run as the president. And like, okay, well, I gave you the training now. You go ahead and run with it. You're going to run as president. And I don't really know, to be honest with you. At that point, I don't think that I'm going to be compelled to want to vote. I don't think it's going to be enough to win me and say, I don't know if I'm prepared to just run to the polls. Oh my God, Newsom or JD Vance. Oh my God, I can't wait to hit the polls. It's like there's gonna be a thing where I'm like, nah, I think I'm just gonna sit this one out again. I'll wait for 2032, see in 4 more years. If I'm still alive by then, if hopefully I don't get hit by a buzz or struck by lightning. But knowing my luck, I'll probably still be here. Throw a little dark humor in there for you. Knowing my luck, I'll probably still be here. I won't get hit by a bus by then. Hopefully by then, the Great Reset will happen in 2030. 80% of people will be out of their work. AI completely takes over. The main issue I have with the way that this country is being run the last 40 or 50 years, it's been pretty much all corporations. And they have been sending our jobs overseas for the last 50 years. It's been going on since the 70s. And they've been sending our jobs overseas. Why? To undermine skilled labor and union jobs here. And that's why they've been doing this, for cheap labor. And so if they couldn't do it the visa way, they did it by just sending our jobs overseas. And hell, they're still doing it. Not to mention that they deserve the George Bush tax cuts, which I actually agree with Joe Biden as a conservative. I agree with Joe Biden when he said, maybe we need to get rid of the George Bush tax cuts if you're not going to build jobs here to these corporations. And I said, that's absolutely a great idea. Why should you benefit off the George Bush tax cuts if you're just sending our jobs overseas anyway? Why should you benefit from the George Bush tax cuts? Because believe it or not, Donald Trump extended those George Bush tax cuts, so did Barack Obama, right? Even Joe Biden extended the George Bush tax cuts. But he later regretted and said, I think we should probably get rid of it if corporations aren't going to start creating jobs here because they're not creating enough. And so that's one thing of maybe 4 or 5 things that Joe Biden did in office that I actually agree with, that he had said. When he had said, let's get away with the George Bush tax cuts if you're not going to play ball. And I agree with that. Why should you benefit from that when you're already stealing real estate, you're stealing land from us, and you're sending our jobs overseas in the name of capitalism? Well, this wasn't what capitalism when I was growing up on, and it wasn't in my father's time. I can tell you that. That's not what it was supposed to be. This isn't, people say we live in a capitalist society. I'm like, that's not necessarily true. We actually live in a fascist country, in my opinion. I would say it's a combination of socialism and fascism. It's a combination of the two. And the idea that you can eliminate your competitors out of the market by just taxing them out, rather than saying I have the best product on the market and I can beat you that way, like the good old American way. There's nothing capitalism by taxing your competitors out of the market. That's you using the loopholes and the laws in your favor and the politicians in your back pocket to make sure that you stay in power, not necessarily for having the best product, but simply just using that as leverage to weed out your competitors. What is so capitalist about that? Answer that for me. Nobody can. You can call me an idiot. You can call me all these names in the comment section. But answer this question for me. Tell me what I'm saying is wrong. Tell me what I'm saying is wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Sending our jobs overseas. Tell me I'm wrong. Using the loopholes and the laws to weed out competitors, to tax them out of the market. The mid-tier competitors out of the market while they get tax breaks. Tell me I'm wrong. What's capitalist about that? I'm sorry. I'm trying not to get angry. I'm trying not to raise my voice, because I've done it before, and I don't want to overwork myself over this shit. But sometimes it works you up because you just have no other choice. You have no other choice but to be worked up over this shit. And I'm just saying, I hate to say it, but again, I think unless we have tax reform in this country, Donald Trump is a joke. And I'm just going to say it like that. I'm going to go as far as his presidency now is going to be a joke when it's all said and done. If you do not have true tax reform by the end of his term, he's got 3.5 years to do so, to have true tax reform, and not this big, beautiful bill that just masks his shit by saying, we're going to eliminate overtime if your job even offers you full-time, let alone overtime, which most jobs today don't. And also the no tax on tips, which restaurants aren't even really making that much money anymore anyway, except for the very few 10%. So until you have true tax reform in this country, your presidency will become a fucking joke. Until property tax is eliminated, it's a fucking joke. Till we eliminate the state tax like they do in California, Florida, New York, etc., etc. Am I missing any other states? Let me know. It is a joke. Until we have true tax reform. This is ridiculous. Ridiculous. I remember when Trump first got elected for the second term, and the first thing he said was, I'm going to tell Congress to eliminate property tax. And I think the first week or two, I think he did tell Congress, let's eliminate property tax. And then after that, it went away. The issue is, nobody really talked about it, right? So then all of a sudden, this big, beautiful bill comes out, right? And he's like, I'm going to sign it July 4th. And I'm like, okay, bet. So I'm thinking no property tax, elimination of the state tax. Let's go ahead and impose a flat tax, and let's go ahead and get this country rolling in the right direction. That's why the dollar's so weak here, is because the fact that we're being taxed 6 to 7 to 8 times over the fucking dollar. That's why. Well, that's a major part of the reason why, other than the printing, but that starts right there, is the fact that the taxes in this country are a joke. I never understood being taxed on a property you own. Now, I can understand if it's a one-time tax and say, okay, well, I owe on this tax or whatever. I owe on this tax because I still owe on the bill. That's understandable. But once the house is paid off, you shouldn't owe a property tax anymore. That doesn't make any sense. So it's like, okay, so it's basically like the government said, okay, I could take your property away by eminent domain, and if I can't do it that way, oh hey, you haven't paid your property tax in 3 years. Oh well, you know that if you don't pay this amount by this date, then with the government will have no other choice but to seize your property and to put it on the auction for the appraisal district and to have your property sold, even though despite the fact that your house is completely paid off, they still can take the property through eminent domain, or which is very rare, but it does happen under eminent domain. But they say, oh, well, you don't pay your property tax in 3 years. We're just going to go ahead and take that property. Oh, you own your property. You own your property. So what good is it for me to own a piece of fucking land when the property is tax keeps going up, and if you don't mystery payments, they can seize the land after you done paid the whole motherfucker off. And I know for a fact because I've actually looked on the appraisal district before, like for example here in Fresno, in certain areas like Fresno, Missouri City, Sugar Land. And I've looked on their appraisal district and I've seen houses completely paid off, but their property taxes weren't paid. So they say, oh, well, if you pay off the property tax, the house is yours. So that means somebody just worked their ass off, paid the goddamn house off, and then it just stripped away because maybe somebody ran in bad luck. Maybe they lost their job. Maybe they got injured. Maybe they got too old. Maybe the maintenance charges went up. Maybe the taxes went up. Maybe all these things went up, and then they can't afford it. There's certain reasons for it, And so it's sort of like that's just a reminder that you really don't own it. You really don't own your fucking house. I mean, then what's the purpose of my name being on the deed if you could just strip the fucking land from me at any time, and then you tell me, oh, eminent domain, and you're going to build a highway through my property so you can take it, or, oh, you didn't pay your property taxes in 3 years, your HO fee, you didn't pay the HOA fees either. As a matter of fact, we're just going to go ahead and take that too while you're at it. We'll just go ahead and take the house from you since you can't afford to live in it no more. It's just, I think property tax is and people are going to disagree with me. I understand that, but it's the biggest fucking scam. It's the worst tax I've ever heard of in my life. It makes no sense because it can constantly go up, and you're being constantly billed for a land that you own. I mean, just think about that from a logic perspective. You go to places like California, houses on the market, and $50,000 for just the property tax alone. That's insanity. That's insanity. Place like California, which that's why I wouldn't want a guy like Gavin Newsom running for the Democratic Party. But unfortunately, I don't think there's anyone else. Maybe AOC, but I don't think that they would vote her in. I think that it would be Gavin Newsom. He has the public figures in his eye. He's more of a rival to Trump. His name's in the paper more. I think they're going to go based on that. The notoriety, and I think they're going to say, okay, we really don't have that many options. We're going to go ahead and run Gavin Newsom for the Democratic Party. For the Republican Party, probably most likely J.D. Vance. Most likely, I think he'll be endorsed by Trump, and that's what I believe is going to happen. Is there a way Vivek Ramaswamy squeezes his way in there? It's a possibility, but I think J.D. Vance will get the endorsement from Trump. It'll sort of be like how Biden was vice president to Obama, for example. Obama endorsed Biden. It's going to be the same thing. It's to me, it seems like that's sort of like a history repeats itself moment. If that makes any sense, history repeats itself. Yeah, I mean, it would be smart. The Italian Stallion, I definitely would check that out. I like Vivek, but I'm not sure he's presidential material. I don't think so either. Han Shabani was Trump's first pick. Oh, okay, yeah, I've seen that one. And again, I try not to do these politics videos because I understand people are so divided on everything. And look, even I'm a little guilty of that. It's American to vote. I get that. It's considered un-American. You don't have the right to vote. You don't have a right to bitch. It's sort of like, okay, all right, fine, have it your way. I'll just go and vote for like, like Ombre, that dead gorilla in Cincinnati Zoo. You guys are aware that he got 15,000 votes, like 3 elections ago. I said, you know what? Why not just go ahead and do something stupid like that, and I'll just vote for like an animal or something, like my parrot or one of my dogs or something. I'll just write his name in and go from there. Here's my vote, and just go from there. Or I could just vote for myself. I mean, why not? I always wonder what would happen if everybody voted for themselves. But they said, oh, well, Congress will determine the president at that point. And it's like, well, maybe we should do that just to kind of make a laughing stock out of the both of these parties and kind of make a joke out of the elections and just say, you know what, we're just not going to go ahead and vote for the 2028 elections. Let's go ahead and spread that word around. Let's tell people not to hit the voting polls anymore, and let's see it really affect them. And maybe it won't, but it would be a joke to have to see Congress sit there and have to determine who the president is going to be. It's going to be a laughing stock, and it's going to definitely put the line of questioning in this two-party system in question when you see people are just not even participating anymore. It's one thing if you believe a basketball game is rigged, but just imagine if players just didn't play anymore and just say, you know, we don't want to play anymore. I mean, just imagine like now it's like, oh God, we can't even find people participating, let alone to say it's rigged. And now you're saying, okay, well, you can't even get people to vote for a system that sucks that bad. And people have been suckered into voting for so much. Now it's like now nobody wants to hit the polls anymore. Now nobody wants to vote anymore. Now they're just not going to participate anymore. You know, I tell people this whether it's the left or right. I'm like, look at the economy and tell me if it's in a sustainable path that it's supposed to be in. And tell me if can the economy sustain itself in the direction it's going to. Whether it's Democrat or Republican, they all say no, it's not sustainable. I say exactly, which is what I'm telling you. The problem is that corporations got involved in real estate. What I'm telling you the problem is that corporations got involved in the stock market. What I'm telling you is that elected guys like Donald Trump, who I did vote for twice, I will admit, I did not vote in this last election, but it only cares about oligarchs and corporations and billionaires that line his pockets that are on his side. Like I said, I've gone as far to say as I think Donald Trump's more of a democratic businessman than he actually is a true fiscal conservative. Some people say, no, he's a centrist. He's a centrist. I'm like, no, there's no such thing as fucking centrism. I believe that he's a democratic businessman and a terrible businessman at that. I think okay, let me rephrase that. I think he's a good businessman to the top 10%, making deals for billionaires who only line his pockets, not just any billionaire. I'm talking about billionaires who line his pockets and or endorse him or whatever the case may be, might have funded his campaign, might have had some sort of involvement money-wise, maybe even helped him make some money. Or corporations that are saying, okay, we'll open up businesses here or we'll open up a couple places here, but in return, we want real estate. We want to own as much real estate as we can, and we want you to give us as many tax breaks as you can. Now, I would say, why do you deserve tax breaks if you're just pushing all of our jobs overseas anyway? Because again, it comes down to cheap labor, right? It's not about who can do the job; it's just who does it the cheapest. In fact, it's gotten so bad in this country to where we have cut in corners so bad that when you get new products now, electronics, food, materials, do you ever notice that it's crap? Because they've cut corners. They don't care about serving us anymore. So you don't even provide a service. You can't even do that. So the sad thing about it was corporations at least provided a service and had a good product. Now you can't even do that. So you're just completely useless. And now you're telling me you deserve the fucking George Bush tax cuts? Absolutely not. You sent our fucking jobs overseas. You fucking crashed the fucking stock market. You're doing all this fucking land grabbing. You're posting all these now hiring signs when no one's fucking hiring, it seems. And you're doing massive layoffs. You're cutting fucking corners. You got cheap raw materials coming into this country that's giving faulty fucking products. And you have the nerve to sit here and tell me that you deserve the fucking George Bush tax cuts and you deserve fucking tax breaks? Absolutely not. You don't deserve none of that. None of it. Not 1 cent. But I'm the bad guy. And you have the nerve to sit here and tell me that that's capitalism? That's bullshit. That is fucking bullshit. That is not capitalism. That is fascism. And I'm just going to be honest with you. The Republican Party has become more of a liberal party. Has actually kind of turned center left a little bit. Deep state red, center left. I would say the Democratic Party, is completely fallen off. They're more into the dark stages of socialism slash what's the word I want to use? Socialism slash I forgot that other word. God damn it, my brain's not working right now. Socialism slash Marxism. And the Republican Party has become more of a liberal party now. Is sort of slightly center left. In fact, it almost feels like it's two Democratic parties that are currently in this market to a degree. I think we're witnessing now a time where it's fascism, socialism, Marxism all into one, and I think capitalism is completely abysmal, small, next to nothing now. Are there some people that still practice capitalism? Absolutely. But is it, in terms of the numbers, it's a real small percentage, and you're definitely not going to see it in corporations anymore. That term capitalism doesn't apply to them anymore. They don't provide good products. They cut corners. They send our jobs overseas. They've cheapened our labor. They've undermined unions. They've undermined skilled labor here. They're doing massive layoffs, and they deserve to sit here and tell us they deserve the George Bush tax cuts. You got to be fucking kidding me. You absolutely have to be kidding me. This is a joke. But none of these other YouTubers will talk about this. They won't explain it like this, so they won't talk about it. They'll just kind of like hide and whatever, and they'll just kind of, they'll kind of wave whatever their side is on their side they represent, whatever. That's fine. I'm just saying, I think it's time that we need to seriously evaluate this two-party system. It's two Democratic parties going against each other. One's on the verge of becoming center-left, if not already there. That's the Republican Party. And then you got the left that's completely far left. And I think that's what we're looking at now. I think capitalism is not going to be a place in America probably by beyond 2030. I think it's just going to be stealing and land grabbing at this point, and that's all it really is at this point. I had somebody tell me the other day, well, that's always been around. I'm like, not necessarily. This has probably been around for the last 50 years. Now the cat's out of the bag. You got the internet. You have access to all this information. And so what happens now is they have the ability to look at these things and say, okay, well, this is what's happening. So now they know we have to speed this process up quick. Well, how do we get people? How can we be able to control the masses? Well, let's steal their fucking property. I mean, it kind of makes sense, like a game of Monopoly. Let's steal their property. Let's build these condos in these neighborhoods and bring those property taxes up so that these retirees have to force to sell. Well, they can't force to sell. Who's going to buy it? No one's buying in the market right now. So the houses are sitting on the market. Go look at Florida. Go look at California. You don't believe me. So guess who owns those properties? Investors, or worse, corporations. Corporations own those properties. And they don't know nobody's going to buy it because it's just not affordable. You're looking at rents $2,500, probably on the low end. On the high end, you're looking at probably by 2027, you're looking at possibly $4,000 a month in rent for just a basic 3-bedroom, 1-story house. It's probably not even up to par, and it's probably had been cut corners for some time and had raw materials. My cousin just bought a brand new house in Sienna Plantation, mind you. This is why I'm going off the tangent about this. He bought a new house. The house is already unleveled. It's only been built for he barely owned the house for 6 months, and it's already has foundation problems. It's already had problems with sheetrock. There's been cheap materials used for the sheetrock. There's been cheap materials used for some of the support beams that have gone around the house. He's even saw that some of the wood was rotten. And this is a brand new home, mind you. This isn't buying a used house. Brand new subdivision, brand new houses that are being sold for $330,000 with $19,000 down for the 5% and $2,500 a month payments. Now, why the hell is that house worth that much when there's already cutting corners? This is what's going on probably in the United States and probably on a large scale globally in years to come. And this is land grabbing, stealing, it's money laundering. They've been lying to us, and this is what's happening. This is what's happening. I didn't even really mean to go off the rail about this. I was just going to just comment to this video right here and just tell him that, well, Ted Cruz didn't really necessarily know when he was on vacation. Do I think he's an arrogant prick? Absolutely. But again, when he's on vacation, he didn't know that the 25-foot, flood was going to happen in 40, or what was it, a 26-foot flood wave was going to come in 45 minutes. I mean, nobody knew, not even me. I'm still kind of like shocked at that the water rose that high. The rumor I heard was that the dam busted and it let a lot of water out. And that's the rumor I'm hearing. I don't know if that's true, so don't quote me for that, but that's what I'm hearing. I just don't think there's no way the water should have rose that high in 45 minutes. To me, it seems like even with 20 inches of rain, I think that the dam possibly breaking, or a dam, being damaged, a levee and something. It's possible. I mean, you look at the Katrina in New Orleans, breaches, the levees broke, water was spewing. It's possible. I'm not saying it's not possible that this happened, but at the same time, it's I just don't know yet. I don't know the facts, so I'm not going to sit there and say it's true, because I don't know. But I will say that I don't think that anybody could have anticipated a storm was going to be this bad, and thus had the evacuation plans. I believe that it happened at 3 in the morning or 2 in the morning or something, like it happened in the middle of the night. It's kind of hard to see. Your line of visibility is out. So imagine if the electricity's out and stuff, then you have no access to see. You have an RV park. It's kind of hard to get on your RV because of the water current going so fast, you can push those RVs out. And it's a travesty, and it sucks. I mean, it broke my heart when I heard the story. I mean, I have videos on it on, the other day from there. If you guys look at my archives, my live streams, I'll show you. Well, I was actually out of town talking about this. It's hard to focus on the good things that happen in life, with vacation and stuff, when you just see tragedies like this happen. Tragedies like this happen all the time, and it's unfortunate. Especially when children as young as 6 years old don't have the ability to live a full life. And here I have the ability. I'm still alive, and I'm an adult, and it's just like, my times where I've taken my life for granted. It's like, and then you see people actually really suffer by losing a loved one, by losing somebody at a young age, and not having the ability to watch them grow up and become an important member of society, not being ability to marry or have children, or go to college, or just learn a trade, or maybe become an athlete. I don't know, whatever. Just become like a productive member of society. They don't get the ability to do that. And I think that's the thing that sucks the most about all this, is that you don't see your loved one anymore, or whatever. And just the horrifying. I'm sure it must have been horrifying to see, to hear about how the waters came in and stuff. Having to it's I'm pretty sure it's for the families to have to move on. I guess it's going to be hard. I don't even know any of those kids. I don't even know any of those people who died, whether they were kids or adults or whatever. I don't even know any of them. And I saw the stories. I watched this one where this guy punched this window out, and he saved his mother-in-law, I think his brother-in-law, sister, and then the woman he was his fiance. But when he punched the window out, the glass cut through the arteries and blood started spilling out. And he said, "Look, I don't think I'm gonna make it." And so imagine, someone you're gonna marry, or even if you are married now or have a significant loved one, imagine them having to tell you, "I'm not gonna make it." I just want to tell you I love you, goodbye. It's like that's like something you think you would hear out of like a novel or a movie, and that's something in real life. I'll tell you that. And yes, I'm gonna read your comments. BlackRock, Steve, I love you, but you gotta read the car comments. My bad. Purchased by headphones. This country is based on land theft, right wing. It's two right-in parties. I'm making good money right now. Yeah, $100 on 4 bags of groceries. I agree. The Overton window has shifted right since Clinton. I love Texas. Well, that's good. You could be more wrong. Couldn't be more wrong. I wish. Next time I'd say I love Texas, absolutely bullshit. Biggest disaster in Texas history. It's fuckers enjoying life. Again, I think Ted Cruz is a piece of shit. But I think him on that vacation, I think Ted Cruz is always on vacation when something happens. Maybe he should tell himself not to take vacations or not make it public. It seems like it's like a jinx or something, man. Every time that guy's on vacation, something's going down. Now, the Cancun vacation, I can understand them slamming him for that, because as soon as the freeze happened, the next day he went to Cancun to, stay in like warmer climate weather. And I mean, even if he stayed here, you think his electricity was off? Come on, man. His electricity wasn't off. He probably got to stay in some suite that had some backup generator or something that was strictly made for politicians. I mean, come on, man. You think they were really going to leave that dude in the cold, even if he stayed here? Nah. He's part of the protected class. I mean, it just is what it is. I'm not mad about it. I'm just acknowledge that's what it is. I acknowledge that what it is. You know. Um. Again, we are reaching a path in time where people are uncertain about job security. You got AI taking over all these robots or whatever. I saw a robot the other day. It was inside of a 7-Eleven. And it was cleaning the floors. It looked like R2D2 from Star Wars. In fact, I'll upload that video to my shorts and I'll let you guys see it for yourself. And I followed that damn robot around from the first part of the store to the. It even went to the damn back. And I said, "Holy shit!" I said, "There goes our replacements." And I said that in the video. And I'm like, "Wow, this is really going to happen." To be honest with you, I think that AI was not created, and this is my belief. People say, well, AI is created because people wanted higher wages. Yes and no. I think that it is possible, but I don't think that was just the reason. I think AI was created because they essentially didn't want to pay us anything. I'm just going to be honest with you because at the end of the day, if you think about it, cutting corners means what? Cutting corners to save cost, right? So if you got a robot that you don't have to pay, you don't have to give vacation to, you don't have to give medical benefits or coverage to, and it'll do everything you say, and you don't even have to pay the damn thing. Well, why would you want to pay people $2 or $3 an hour, even if that's a good bargain for there? But to save the $2 or $3 an hour, you're gonna bring in those damn robots. And I think that it was smoke and mirrors. I think that's why, like when they talk about the immigration debate, I think it's a distraction. I think that the reason why they try to like pin this on immigrants to make this a debate about the stealing of jobs. But I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that AI was supposed to take jobs from everybody, including the immigrants. I think they just completely don't want to pay anybody, and they could just soak up the money and just reel in all the money and just have these robots performing. I think that even if it comes to the point where you're like, okay, I'll work for $2 an hour, $1 an hour, I think they're gonna say no because we got a robot that'll do it for free. We don't need you anymore. And it's just the scary thing is if 2030 hits and this thing really takes off, and if assuming it goes in this plan, you're looking at 80-90% unemployment. And they're going to say, well, learn a trade. I always hear this, learn a trade or get involved in real estate. I'm like, well, first of all, how is real estate going to benefit you when no one's buying these houses? If the boomer generation dies off in 20 years and you got 21 million homes on the market, how the fuck are you supposed to survive in real estate when no one can afford it? No one can buy the homes. So you're just going to have a bunch of homes sitting on the market. Go look at California. It's a prime example of what it's going to look like. That's what it's going to look like right there in the future. And so if that is the case, real estate wouldn't be able to save you. And this is just my logical theory of all this before I get out of here. And this is my summation of this, okay? Like an essay almost, or persuasive essay that you're standing in front of your TECA class in college. This is my summation. This is what I believe is what's going to happen. Besides what I've just told you, I think that what's happening right now in terms of the private sector market, or just the job sector in general, whether it's at your private sector or at your state, city, local, federal government, this is what I believe is happening. I believe that when the dollar collapses, I think people kind of know. I think corporations know. I think that people know that it's not a matter if, it's a matter when this is going to happen, right? So when this happens, okay, they want to be able to transfer all that money to digital currency or some sort of crypto, whatever, and then transfer that asset into the new asset to where it's worth something. And so what I believe is happening now is, I think the reason why these cutting corners of jobs and massive layoffs are happening, and maybe this might be a conspiracy theorist in me saying this, 'cause I still got a little bit left in me. I think what you're seeing is corporations cutting corners because they know the market's going to collapse. And they know it's going to collapse. And I think people have a sense for it. They're just kind of putting it in the back of their mind. Well, what if it doesn't? I think it's not a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when. And I think what's going to happen is that what I think is happening is that corporations and people in general are sort of trying to soak up as much money as they can. No longer the honest way anymore. It's stealing, land grabbing, whatever you want to call it. And they're just trying to accumulate as much money as they can so that when the market collapses, they hope they can survive. I think you're looking at the survival of the fittest now. And that's the unfortunate, because, and you know, if you see this is happening, you know, a lot of people are going to end up suffering. So instead of coming up with a divisive plan that can save humanity, it's like, no, we're not going to do that. We're only going to let the top 10% of people who can accumulate that wealth enough so that this thing collapses, and maybe there's some sort of new barter system in place or whatever. And maybe, perhaps, I'll survive. So I just want to accumulate as much as I can so that I can survive. And I've heard people say these things before, whether it's YouTubers, social content makers, or even these private conversations I have with other people around me. Is I think what it is people are trying to prepare themselves for the worst now. I think now the, you know, it's like, well, what if the economy gets better? I think that's all out the window now. I think now people are just like, we see the markets crashing. We see the credit cards going to collapse. We see the dollar's going to collapse. It's not a matter of, it's a matter of when. How do I position myself in a position to where I'm safe and I can survive and my family can survive? And that's where I think people are at. And I think that's why you see the market so, what's the word I want to use? I think that's why you see the market in the position it's in right now. Because I think it's not about providing the best service. It's not about providing the best product. It's not about providing for the American people anymore. It's about just saying, we're just going to accumulate as much wealth as we can to where when this thing collapses, we can transfer it to the new assets and we're good. And I'm good. And I think even to a degree, humans in general are sort of at this point now. I think rather it's beyond, I think it goes beyond corporation. I think you're looking at sort of the survival of the fittest right now. I know this is kind of overstretching my brain at this point, but I truly believe we're at this point in life now. I think we're at a point where people have this mindset where I need to accumulate as much as I can so that when this collapses, I'm straight. I can survive. And I can still, you know, have food for my family or whatever. That's why me and Washburn Billy, we've had these conversations before. We've, he's in the comment section right now. We had these conversations where we talked about accumulating food, water, having enough food and water for years. I got enough food and water for quite some time. Now it's going to last me forever? No. But I've already started stockpiling on water. I started stockpiling on rice and walnuts. I've started stockpiling on beans, pinto beans, a couple other beans as well. Lima beans. I think I got some lima beans. And there's some like 5 different forms of beans that I got right now. Because you know that rice will last a long time. Beans will last a long time. That's your source of protein. Rice gives you a source of carbs, right? So you have to start stockpiling on water as well, at least for a year, maybe even a year and a half. And I hate to say it, but I think we're at that time now. I think that we're at that time where it could come down to that survival of the fittest. Do I want this to happen? Hell no. If you'd have told me 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 22 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years, I would have said, hell nah, I mean, you're crazy. This shit's never going to happen. This is just fool's talk. This is something I got out of a movie, like, or something like that, like the end of times or something. It's like now I'm looking at it in 2025. I'm like, oh shit, 2026 is coming up. Collapse of the dollar is coming. A lot of businesses are closing up. Corporations are literally land grabbing, stealing, and money laundering. Politicians have stolen our fucking money. And it's just like, you're looking at this now and you're like, so now you have to think as an individual, well, how do I position myself in the best position to where I can survive for my family? So now you see people are doing this. It's like basically a big giant battle royale. And every man's for himself. Even families are divided. So it's like, it comes down to where it's like every man for himself. And it's like, okay, so did greed ultimately kill this country? Marvin asked on Facebook. That's a good question. I've been asked that before. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think humans have become very materialistic. I think that we have become greedy to a sense to where it used to be to where I don't want to see my fellow man down. I want to see you as successful. Now it's sort of like I want to take my customers and take yours at the same time, and I want to do it through any means necessary. Not I have the best product, not that I can outbeat you in the market. What laws and legislation can I use to leverage myself over you and take you out of business? And that's sort of like the big fish chick, big bank eats little bank, sort of like what you're seeing in the market right now. With a lot of these mid-tier businesses are closing down, and the places like Walmart, Amazon, Apple, you see a lot of these big places, big market firms, or these big corporations can survive a COVID-19 shutdown, can survive a mass epidemic or a pandemic or whatever you want to call it, apocalyptic, whatever, the collapse of the dollar. These companies can, I think there's like 7 or 9 companies that literally run the United States. And that's it. And I just named you like 4 or 5 of them right now. And so with that being said, those 9 companies are literally keeping the United States afloat. Other than that, we would be probably a third world country if it wasn't for these 9 corporations. Now, the thing is yes, they're still around, but for how long? And what happens when you eliminate all your competitors, right? Because we talk about competition in the market, right? What happens when you eliminate your competitors? What happens? You want to answer that for you? I can answer for you. That means the prices go up because now they hold in hostage to all the products. So they say, okay, how bad do you want those bananas? We can charge you $20 because where else are you going to get them from? We can charge you $15 for tomatoes. We can charge you $100 for an avocado because you have nowhere else to go. Who else are you going to get it from? There are no competitors. And this is what happens when you eliminate that competitive market. You eliminate those small mom and pop businesses. You eliminate those mom and pop companies to big corporations. And now the corporations are like, see, you have no choice but to come to us now. So how bad do you want those bag of peanuts? You're going to have to pay us $50 now. And so they can, basically hold these products at gunpoint to where you're forced to having to pay those. What's up, bro? Thinking we made out of money, bro? I just read your comments. You only made 2. You only made 1 comment, King Twister. And I did read the comments. I just read the rest of them. And I read the other ones earlier. It says I go on these tyrants and then I don't look at my phone. I'm just kind of like looking at the wall and ranting right now. And then I'm like, oh shit, 30 minutes went by and then it's time to read the comments. So it's not that I'm ignoring them. It's like I go on these tirades, And so anyways, when you eliminate these companies from being able to compete in the market, now you can hold everything hostage. You don't have to sell, you don't have to, so you can sell a bag of peanuts for $50. Where else are you going to go to get it? And that's why I don't like this. I do not like how these corporations are using the market to weed out their competitors. I don't like it. And it's not capitalism at all. It's not. It's just fucking fascism, dude. That's all it is. The Federal Reserve Act of 1913 is a joke. Absolutely, Marvin, I agree. It's bullshit. You give all the banks all this power. They allow these corporations to borrow against their assets with no interest down, just to send our jobs overseas and to fucking open up some imaginary job that pretends like they're hiring, and then have to sit here and the nerve to ask for the George Bush tax cuts when you're seeing massive layoffs from a massive scale. What jobs are you necessarily providing? You're not providing shit. You're just smoke and mirrors. You're just sending our jobs overseas for a penny to the dollar because you could pay somebody from somewhere else cheaper to do it here. And now with the invention of AI technology, shit, they don't even have to build any companies overseas anymore, except for just to spread their empire. But they could just, now they can just control completely the entire market by just hiring robots and saying, okay, well, now we don't need anybody anymore. We don't need no one. You don't even have the luxury to work for 25 cents an hour. You don't even have the worst case scenario to work for a quarter. We don't even need you for that anymore. We have somebody that'll do it for free. So unless you're willing to do it for free or you're willing to pay them, they're not going to hire you. You know, people say, well, you know, if you invest in trade, you'll be safe, Rose. And I'm like, yeah, for now. In order to, you know, be an electrician or to work in HVAC, or let's say you wanted to be a welder or whatever, though, you need customers. You need people that you're going to work on. And when you got 8% of the people out of the market, you don't think that's not going to affect your job? You damn right that is. It's going to affect your goddamn job. It's a scam, dude. It's bullshit. I think corporations were planning on AI takeover for a long time. Absolutely. I think right now the whole story is immigrants are taking our job, which is bullshit. And I've worked in construction. I've worked. Nobody wants to work those backbreaking jobs. No one. And if there is, it's not too many people. I'm being honest. It's backbreaking labor. It's hot as fuck outside, and you're working in the dirt. And I'm just telling you, it's a job that really nobody wants to do, especially here. And I'm just being honest with you. Even like me now, I've done those type of jobs. I've busted up concrete. I've worked in foundations before. I've had to dig 6 to 8 feet in the ground and get bit by water snakes and, you know, water moccasin, or I got bit by spiders and shit, and had hit a bee's nest and had some hornets sting me. I've had it happen, and trust me, it sucks. And then not to mention working in the sun, by the way. No one wants to do that. And you know, to a degree, I don't blame people. I don't blame people. That stuff is a backbreaking labor. But I'm telling you right now that you need some immigrants here. You need them to do those jobs, because if you don't, you're looking at economical collapse. I'm just being honest with you. And it's not a conversation people want to hear, because, you know, the ideas are still in our jobs is like not necessarily true. It's not like they're coming in your tech job, still in your tech job. Come on, man. It's the thing is the problem is that the corporations have been using the loopholes for cheap labor. So really the corporations are the problem. They're the ones that are doing this. They're sending our jobs overseas, to China, to Vietnam, all these countries. People are getting mad at other people for taking advantage of it. It's like, yeah, you can do that, but let's get mad at the people who are encouraging this. And what are those? Corporations. Using, and the politicians that are also in their back pockets that are allowing this. So really, I'm more upset with corporations that have been sending our jobs overseas for the last 50 years. That's what I'm upset about. And so they kind of use that whole immigration thing as a mask to get people to fight, when in reality, they're just going to replace all of us anyway. So then, you know, again, the AI technology opens up. Now you got these AI robots and AI computers now, computer systems that can, you know, do all the same work, right? So now you don't even need immigrants anymore. So we're not going to hire Americans, but we're not going to hire immigrants either. Oh, all of you are left without a job now. So now you just got a bunch of people that's stuck in one cubicle area with literally no jobs available. Like, we're all going to get screwed. And I kind of see this coming. You know, people are fighting over jobs being stolen. I'm like, you realize that AI is taking over? It's going to steal everybody's job. You want to, and it's not even a human that's doing it. It's a damn robot. You know, I told myself that I wasn't going to go off the scales today with a video like this. And Mr. Rose, you seem to kind of prove everybody wrong once again, in yourself. That, you know, your big fat mouth, you know, drug you for 2 hours again. And I wasn't intended on screaming and yelling. Well, not really screaming and yelling. I would just, you know, a formal discussion for almost 2 hours. It's like, now it's like I need to go to bed. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed it. And, you know, I'll bring some more of these videos back. Most of my videos are on private because I get a bunch of trolls on here a lot of the times. They're flagging videos and stuff. So with all due respect, I just have to keep some of these videos. I have a bunch of collab videos with Prodigal Hill that are really good, where we talk about all this stuff, plus more. But I have to have those on private. Currently, Will I take them off? Absolutely. I just got to find the right time and when to do that because, again, got a bunch of trolls that hit the flag button and all this, and I just get tired of dealing with them. So I just put it on private, just just for the way that way, just gets rid of all this, gets rid of all that talk. Just say, you know what, let's go ahead and put it on private. Let's just go about our business. Now I'll close this out. Again, title of the video is a little misleading because I go off the hinges here, but I will say about Ted Cruz, I think he's a little arrogant? Yes. Does he seem to go on vacation whenever a disaster happens? Yes. Was he wrong about when he went on Cancun for the Great Freeze? Absolutely. Could he have handled it different? Absolutely. The Greece trip, I think he went on that trip before the flood happened. I would like to say I think he did before the flood happened. Do I think he could have maybe did something differently? I mean, absolutely, but I would only assume. I don't know exactly how he would be able to arrange a flight that would have gotten him back. Plus, he was already on vacation, and he was already spending time with his family. I mean, I was on vacation too, and I did talk about it. But again, I'm not a politician. But at the same time, uh, I don't know how you would have. I don't know how if let's say he did get back in a timely manner, what difference it would have made because of the travesty in itself, which was horrible, horrible. Anyways, I see some of you commenters are on here from the previous stream I was just on, and that was the one with Steve Holka. Cool dude. That's the first time I've ever streamed with him. Love his videos. I think I did a response to him. I didn't even know he watched the damn thing, and I put that video on private too. I appreciate you for having me on your show, man. It was a blessing. First time I ever got to talk to you. I think we kind of have different views on how we see the data in the market. I do agree with some of the stuff he says, but I think men, in my opinion, I don't think men have any really much standards. I think men had more standards back then in my dad's time. I'll leave it like that. And I think until men start having standards again, you're not really going to see much of a change in the market when it comes to female male dynamics. I mean, if you were to ask a woman like what are requirements in a man, she would probably give you like a whole paragraph full of stuff. Versus if you were to ask most men, what is your requirements in a woman, maybe like one or two lines or maybe one or two words or maybe not even anything. And I think maybe we need to reevaluate our standards the same way that I think women do. And I think in a sense it'll I think it'll even out the market a little bit, if that makes sense. I mean, that's what I believe. And I saw some commenters about, oh, that guy's ugly. How does he get girls? I'm like, well, first of all, I never said I get every girl. I said I've had girlfriends. I said, but the girls that I also get are also average looking, which that's okay because I'm an average looking guy. I'm not, no prize fighter. I'm not like the best looking guy in the world either. But most of the girls I get are around like my looks equivalency. So like for example, people say, what do you rate yourself? I'm like a 4, 5 on a good day, 4 on a bad day. So the girls I get are probably around the same looks equivalency, a 5 and below, and that's okay. I don't mind. It's not a big deal to me. I like more personality. I like a woman that's has great positive energy, great outlook on life. A woman that's also will take time to spend time with me, that sort of ordeal. And of course there's other integral factors that kick in. But like I said, I'm not, I date average looking women, and it's not like I target them. It's just because I see myself as an average looking guy. So I mean, I don't think I'm picky in regards to looks necessarily, but more so into like the personality and the other factors that kick in. So, just food for thought. Just thought I kind of fill in the blanks for you guys. But I appreciate you guys for taking the time to watch my content. Yeah, Again, most of my good content is on private till just for now, until I find the right time where I can start unprivating those videos. And there's always a time and a place, I guess. But I'll have to figure that out to go back. And I want to do collabs actually with Prodigal Hill again. I thought me and him did some good NWO End of the World videos together. In the NWO takeover, I got tons of videos of that, but they're on private, good videos. Used to have people just commenting left and right on it, and but we living in different times now where people want to, they want to flag your videos and stuff like that, and it's just sometimes it's just not worth the stress, and especially. I don't mean to make this sound like a money thing. I'm not asking for money for anybody, but sometimes, you like to know you make a little money on this channel, but at the same time, I don't make any money for me to be stressed out for a free website that I make free content from but I'm not going to stress myself out over a free content YouTube channel where I make free content videos and then have to deal with the trolls. It's just, to me, it's not worth it. I just do it because I enjoy it. It's just a hobby to me. It's like when I have nothing else better to do, I'll comment on politics. I'll comment on dating. I'll comment on, if you guys want to go watch my previous videos, I talked about men simping online is the biggest problem in terms of the male-female dynamics of dating. I think that a lot of guys are not approaching women anymore, and I talked about that on my, I think 3 or 4 videos ago, or 5 maybe. You have to go look that up yourself. But at the same time, men today don't really have that many standards, and I think it's time maybe we need to reevaluate that thing. It's like we can't really blame the girls for being extremely picky when their DMs keep filling up. I think guys just need to disengage from engaging in these websites that allows these women to behave like this. So if we're not going to the dating apps no more, we're not entertaining the OnlyFans, we're not entertaining those websites like the cam girls and all that, you're not cash apping women, you're not doing any of that. You're actually requiring women to have to do more rather than just be the recipient of some man just simping all day. And you seem to have a lot of these guys online doing this, then maybe that will change the pace of the game. And that's where I sort of disagree with Hulk about, because he's like, no, well, there'll just be 10 more simps to fill your place. It doesn't matter. What I'm saying is if you had enough men that would participate in this, then, you'll see changes. And it's like, my dad told me this the other day, I think the best explanation. He said, you can't change the way that other men behave, but you can change the way that you behave. So in other words, if those guys want to simp and do all that, that's great. But I know I'm not doing it. So, sometimes I'll be in a situation where, I'll be talking to someone and she'll be like, oh, well, this other guy did something. I'm like, I don't care what he did because that's not me. I'm not going to do all that. I'm not paying your cell phone bill. I'm not doing none of that shit because I'm not your man. I'm not your husband. We're just talking, whatever. I'll pay for the dates and I don't mind doing that, but that's as far as it goes, And it's not me being a dick. It's just, it's just because some of these girls are so used to guys being free sugar daddies for nothing. And it's like, well, you can't really go and tell another man how to, go about how he engages women. I could just change the way that I could do it. I just know I'm not going to do none of that. I'm not participating in any of that, and I'm not going to be a part of it. So I'm going to do things my own way and live my own life. And that's basically, in a nutshell, I think that's how the only way for men to be able to respond is just to put the focus more on your life, put the focus more on your own happiness, and do things that you enjoy. Like me, I like meeting new people. I like going to new places. I like trying new things, and so I think men, to a degree, they've always been told by society that we don't ever really mattered. That man's happiness doesn't matter. And, the term happy wife, happy life, okay, fine. But, we're always told that men's happiness is sort of like a second distance to none, deal with it, blah, blah, blah. And I think after a certain time, you just say, you know what? My happiness does matter. And I'm going to do things that I enjoy doing as long as I'm not hurting nobody. I'm going to do things that I enjoy doing, meeting new people, trying new places to eat, going sightseeing, stuff like that. I'm just going to do things that I enjoy now. Like, why is my happiness not the focus of attention anymore? Why is that men have to settle for other people's happiness other than themselves. And their happiness never matters. Right? I'm not asking for men to be feminine. I'm just asking, why does our happiness never matter? You know, we never stop to ask that question. Why? Why is it that a man's happiness never matters? And maybe that's just, you know, I just said, you know what, fuck that. My happiness matters too. And I mean, I'm not saying this from a feminine standpoint. I'm just saying it from a realistic standpoint. It's just, what about my happiness? What about what I enjoy doing in life? What about the things that I enjoy? Why do I have to live my life for someone else? And it's like, sure, you have to do that. There's responsibilities that comes to being a husband and being a. I'm not saying that, but all I'm saying is, what about me? What about my happiness? Does that not matter? And the way that I see it is that no one else is going to give you that happiness other than you giving it to yourself. I'm a firm believer that if you don't have some sort of self-love, I'm not saying you have to be egocentric and walk around saying, oh, I'm the shit, I'm better than everybody, and start pointing your finger in people's faces. I'm not saying that, but I am saying you have to have some sort of self-respect for yourself and self-dignity for yourself and self-love for yourself to a degree, just enough to where you know you can pass that energy off to other people, and they in turn reciprocate that and turn around and give you that positive feedback back. I love Steve Holcomb. He's a good guy. But when you channel negative energy, you're going to get that same thing back eventually. It's nothing personal. It's the reality of how life is. You get back what you put in this world. So if you're always negative, then you're going to encounter nothing but negative impact. I'm not asking you to be egocentric. I'm not even saying that anything you're saying is wrong in your videos. I agree with at least 75 to 80% of things you're saying. It's just at the end of the day, you have to do things that you enjoy that make you happy in life. Otherwise, you're just going to be just a miserable soul. And it's like, I've been there. I've done that before, and it sucks. It's a horrible fucking feeling. It makes you feel like shit. And so it's like, if other people can't enjoy themselves around to be around you, other people are gonna they're gonna sense that, and then they're gonna want to, even if they know you're right about everything, they're just gonna get tired of hearing, oh, same old shit. Here goes Holka or Rose or anyone could just come being the same whiner again. They'll start distancing themselves from you. They don't want to call you back, and then you just know that when you alienate people, it comes with that mindset of always being negative, always seeing the worst. Which I'm not saying you don't have a right to feel that way, but at the same time, you do that all the time. With the results you're going to see of that is just it's going to be nothing but negative, man. If you put out nothing but negativity, you're going to get it back. The old saying goes, you put out what you get what you put out. It just is what it is. You have to change that mindset. I'm not saying you have to be perfect. Hell, I'm not. I'm not perfect at all. I don't go around saying I'm the shit. And then, I just, if I could find a woman that makes me happy and she's like a 4 or 5 and looks, hey, so be it. That's cool. I'm not the best looking guy in the world. I've admitted that. I'm not like some King Tut walking around, or Brad Pitt or whatever, whatever these guys are. I'm not no John Cena walking around and shit. No, absolutely not. And I'm fully aware of the market. I'm fully aware that there are guys that, when it comes to the competition level, they're better than me in terms of looks and or maybe economical status. And so it's like, maybe I can't compete with those guys, but I could still compete. You know what I'm saying? I could still go and do my own thing and not necessarily focus. I think men focus too much on unimportant stuff, like focusing on what other men are doing, not worrying about their own life and stuff. And I think it's time we need to start putting the focus and the drive on our own lives and going from there. I think that again, and focus away from this whole internet, running to these forums and websites where women are around hoping and begging for their attention, and trying to offer them money for stuff they didn't even earn. I think we need to start changing those ways, and until we start changing that, we're not going to see the results in the dating market. In fact, it's just going to continue to get worse. And I'm just giving my opinion. So that's just my opinion. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. So, well, it's good that you made that comment, right? Let me go ahead and read it real quick. Caitlin said, "Why do you think it never matters?" Well, I think a man's happiness is always just something on the back burner. Of course, we as men are raised to believe you be providers and stuff. That's fine. But, men have always been told that the only thing that matters is just the money you make and stuff, and that's it. Your happiness is just something that is not really of importance. It's about making others happy, children, wife, mother, father, whatever. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with making others happy. I just think sometimes you're so busy trying to make others happy that you lose yourself in the process. That's the point that I'm making. So you lose process of making your own self happy. And I think a lot of men suffer from this internally. I think they just don't say it because it's not something we frown or talk about, but I think it's something that internally goes on. And I think it's like a mindset that makes sense. So that's where I go in regards to that. Now, I'm not here to throw a pity party. I'm not asking for anybody to feel sorry for me. It's definitely not the intent of this video. I'm just giving my opinion on certain aspects. Never said we're not women. I never said that. Again, you're misinterpreting the point of the video. You know, that is a personal problem. Okay, well then that's your opinion, right? We all have our. Hey, at the end of the day, we all have our own opinions, right? That's the beauty of the internet, the stream, right? We all have our own opinions. I'm not asking for everybody to agree with every little thing I say. That would be foolish of me not to. And I'm not going to sit here and try to force you to believe anything I believe. That is your right to tell me I'm wrong. Just like I have my right to respectfully disagree. And we have our difference of opinions. At the end of the day, we have our own paths in life. What may work for me may not work for others, and what may work for you may not be the best solution for me. It's the nature of the beast. We all have a different path in life, and you know. But I think that's what the ability of meeting new people brings you, is that it gives you the ability to learn about different thought processes, learn about making new friends, having some what's the word I want to use, common interests. you know it doesn't work for everybody. you know so I'm taught to be more humble about things. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I was a hothead. For some of you who watch my channel, that I got old videos on private, by the way. I explode. I'd always get offended by everything. And it's like, the thing is, you get older, you start to have a kind of better understanding that not everybody's always going to agree with you. Not everybody's all going to sit here and hold hands in matrimony and say, oh man, Steven, you're right, and give that whole pandering shit. If you disagree with everything I say, that's okay. That's okay. It's not a big deal. Life goes on, right? At the end of the day, I mean, what kind of world would we be in if everybody just agreed with everybody on everything? What kind of world is that? It wouldn't be a good world. Like, to me, if I, like back in the day, I used to want to have 100 friends, 200 friends, 300 friends, right? And I always thought it was a numbers game. The amount of number of women you need to sleep with, the amount of number of women you need to date, the amount of number of friends you want to make. It's always about like the popularity contest aspect, right? And as you get older, the quantity goes down. You look for quality. When you're younger, you try to look for quantity over quality. That's why you always have people tell you, hey, don't hang around with these people. Hey, don't date these people. Hey, don't do this. And you kind of ignore it because you're young and dumb. And as you get older, you kind of reflect on things. Does that make sense? You kind of start reflecting. As you get older, you start to have um, an understanding of what life is, and you start to appreciate things because as you get older, you're not getting any younger, and you sort of start understanding that things you can't force people to change their ways. You can't really force people to see things the way you see it. Not everything's always going to go your way, and that you have to be more patient versus the knee-jerk reactions you normally get early in life from people when you have a disagreement or whatever. You start to you start to listen more. You start to think of the consequences of your actions more than you did when you were younger. When you're younger, you're a hothead. You want to start swinging at everybody and arguing with everybody and stuff. And it's like, after a while, you start to have an actual discussion and to accept the fact that they don't see things the way you do, and you try to come to an understanding. And if you don't, you can always just agree to disagree and go about your business. It doesn't have to be a contract signing or anything. It's just the nature of the beast, man. That's the way life is. It's just there's ups and downs. It's like a roller coaster ride. You start to appreciate life more as you get older. Definitely. Marvin said that on Facebook. I agree. That is true. You get more wisdom as you get older. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, like I said, I haven't done one of these videos in a while. Usually I've been just doing food reviews lately, trying to stay away from, this type of the spectrum. But sometimes, you just want to scratch that scratch that I used to have. I used to collab. I used to bring people on my shit. I used to collab with women, men. I used to do all that shit, man. Me and Paulson used to put these NWO videos together, and with New World Order and stuff. Man, I'm talking about get 1,000 videos of views of video, man. Those were the good old days, Oh, those were good old days. And would I like to bring that back? Absolutely. But, sometimes it's not always easy doing these videos when you have people that don't, not everyone, but you'll have a certain people that don't really want to engage in the conversation. They just want to just tear you down, like either flag it, report it, whatever. At a certain point, you just like, enough's enough. It's not worth it for a free website, free content. I'm not making any money off of this. I just do it because I enjoy it. And then you're giving me hell. Nah, it's not worth it. So, it'll be different if you're making a lot of money off a channel, off your content. It's different. It's different because you're like, okay, I'm making some money off this. Maybe I need to reevaluate certain things or reword some things. But now it's like, oh no, this is a free website. I'm making free money. It's okay, no big deal. It's not a big deal. But at the same time, it's not worth this. You know what I'm saying? The stress. So, I put all my videos to private right now. As of right now, I just put those specific videos to private until the time is right for me to unprivate those videos. So now it's not the right time, but in the future it will. But I can see where you're coming from. Fair enough. Yeah. But one thing I do agree with my old man is he said you get back what you put in this world. And I do agree with that. I agree with that. So if you're always negative or you put negative energy out there, even if you're right, you're going to see that. You're going to see that coming back. And that's one thing that I had to learn as a young man when I was putting out negative content versus looking back now. I look at some of my old videos and I feel embarrassed, disgusted, which is another reason why a lot of them are on private for that reason. And so I said I kind of made a vow to reshape the way that I make videos. So that's why a lot of people say, your videos are a lot different than they used to be. I'm like, yeah, because the old videos I made were not good. They were just for shock value, but they weren't necessarily videos that I would say I was proud of doing. I think a lot of it was blaming and gender war bullshit. I'm glad I got out of that shit. I'm glad I'm no longer part of that crap. I unfollowed a lot of people, especially those content makers that continue to drive that divide stick up in regards to, like, women and men. It's all women's fault. Blah. I suffer those people. Just Pearly Things, Andrew Tate, all those guys. Justin Waller. I unfollowed every single one of them. Whatever podcast. Don't follow him no more. I unfollowed all of them. I don't follow their channels anymore. I'm sort of going in my own direction and watching channels I think that are putting positive content out there. Maybe a little boring to some of you, but positive content channels that are feeding my mind with positive energy, because, after a while it just gets old. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, if you want change in your life, you have to do it yourself. That's just the way it is. This is, you sit here and complain. And I look on these content makers, and they're always complaining. Girls, guys, they complain about each other. I can't find a date. These dudes ain't shit, and these women ain't shit. I'm like, yeah, it's fine for a video here or there, but it's like, when that's all your content is, after a while, it just gets old, and it's just full of just being negative Nancy, if that makes sense. And I'm just like, eventually at that point, I just say, you know what, it's time that I have to unfollow you. I don't want to do it, but I have no choice, because, I don't want that shit to rub off on me. And then I end up falling in that trap, which is my fault. But at the same time, I don't want to just be a part of that shit no more. I'm tired of it. I'm done with it. And I'm sick of it. Well, like I said, right now I do a lot of food reviews. I go to a lot of places and do food reviews. I go to Bogey's. That's my hangout spot. I met a bunch of dude friends up there. We did a dart tournament yesterday. That's on my live stream. His name's Nick, real cool dude. Friends with this old guy named David. Real nice guy. He's like in his 70s. Who would think, oh, young man hanging out with an old guy. Man, he's real cool. His wife passed away about 2 years ago. And he lives in the house by himself, and so he only knows people he goes to Bogies with. So we go out there, hang out, and like I saw him today, and I say, hey, I see you're growing your hair out. Yeah, man, I just decided, to grow it out a little bit, man. And I was like, that's cool, bro. No worries. And so we did a dart tournament. We played a little pool, and, I get a little enjoyment out of that. It's kind of fun meeting interesting people from around the world. I like it. I like it. To me, what I like to do now is I like to meet new people. I like to meet new and interesting people. That's going to bring a positive impact on my life, not a negative one, if that makes sense. That's what I want to do. I get like a high off of it. I was on a bus the other day, because a friend of mine rides a dart rail a lot. He rides a TRE in Dallas. And we took save a little money on gas. We decided to take the TRE to Fort Worth. On Fort Worth, we met an interesting guy on there. His name was Javier, a real nice guy. And we talked, and he said, hey, where are you guys on the way to? I'm like, oh, we're on the way to Fort Worth. Really? What are you doing in Fort Worth? I said, well, we're going to go look for a place to eat and go on the Sundance Square. And he's like, well, to be honest with you, have you ever been to Fort Worth? I'm like, well, I've been to a friend's house, but I've never been around Sundance Square. And he's like, I'll show you all the places around here. Best place to eat, best place to go play pool, best place to do this, best place to do that, man. Follow me. And he showed me all around Sundance Square, and went to this place called Salsa Limon. It's some good Spanish food. And then after that, we went and shot some pool, and he was one of the coolest guys. He's like a tour guide, just out of nowhere. You'll never be surprised at who you run into in life. Just think of the probability of meeting someone. I met ruffians like that, yeah. And so at this stage of the game, and I think Muslim Maid will probably agree with me on this. Probably the one thing he'll agree with me on. As you get older, you know, your mental state is most important. And it's not worth getting worked up over bullshit, petty shit. You know, like you did back in the day. Like, you know, almost every little thing sets you off. But as you get older, your stress level, your mental stability, is just your time is more important. And so you just figure it's not worth the stress over this. Let's just go ahead and part ways. Or, you know, you want to just do things that gives you that mental stress relief. You know, that just you enjoy doing. And that's what I was referring to, that men's happiness never really matters. And I don't mean it in a way of this whole feminization of men. I meant it, let me rephrase that. I meant it to a degree to where just the happiness of men in general really doesn't, it's really not something that's talked about. It's more like kind of frowned upon because it's like, well, that's just part of being a man. Well, absolutely, I agree. But maybe to a degree, our happiness should be something that we try to find ways to, I don't know, to bring out into the light without necessarily complaining or whining. I'm not saying that. I'm saying just to start focusing a little bit more on your own interest rather than just trying to appease everyone and just trying to make everyone else happy. You just say, you know what, like, you know, you're going to run into those moments where, of course, you're going to, you know, do things that is going to make someone else happy, but you're not really going to enjoy yourself. But what I'm saying is that, you know, maybe there's nothing wrong with trying to find your interest in hobbies without always having to make others happy all the time without you even ever being noticed. And I think that, you know, that's what, you know, I think it's a mindset. It's kind of hard to explain. I hope you guys know where I'm going with this. It's just, that's kind of what I'm kind of thinking about, you know, if that makes sense. Exactly. Just be as authentic as much as you can. People fits ethnicity wise. Yeah, exactly. Well, at least, Caitlin, I can make you laugh. I mean, that's a start. You know, I think one of the biggest thing men do, and this is just my opinion, I think men worry about what other men are doing. You know, you see a lot of jealousy amongst men going around. Now, I know women do the same thing. They have kind of their own way. I think guys get easily envious of each other over dumb shit. You know, who has more girls than who? Who slept with this girl? Who didn't? You know, um, you know, pocket watch and all this shit. You know what I'm saying? I think that we tend to focus on non-important issues or important or issues we think are important to us, and then later you laugh at. If that makes any sense, I think that we tend to worry too much about non-important things, and I think that men need to start focusing on um, the improvement of themselves, if that makes sense. I'm not like trying to say red pill shit, but I mean, I kind of agree with some of their shit, but what I'm just saying is that I just think men nowadays are way, like, at least like social media wise, are always just so worried about what other men are doing. It's like, dude, and even in case they're worried about what other women are doing, I'm like, dude, stop worrying about what these people are doing and start worrying about your own life, man. That's the point that I'm making. And you know, it's easy to fall in that trap because you watch these knee jerk reaction videos. I've done that. I mean, I've done the same shit. You know, and it's just like, you know, one of the dumbest things I hear guys cry about it on the internet, particularly, is like, well, these women get so much attention. I'm like, well, yeah, that's because men naturally go up to women. Well, you know, even the ugliest girls could get more attention than some of the best looking guys. I'm like, well, yeah, that's true, but that does that say more about the girls or does that say more about us? I mean, think about it. And that's what I was telling Steve Holka on his interview earlier, like, or when he brought me on his show. I was telling him, does this say more about the girls or does it say more about us? And then he was like, that's not true. There's 10 other simps to replace you, even if you walk away. I'm like, yeah, that you're right. There's always going to be some other guys that are going to fill up her DMs, even if, let's say, I stop DMing her. Yeah, but you're right. But I can't worry about what those other men are doing. Let's not. And that's what I was trying to tell Steve Holka with all respect. I was trying to explain to him, let's stop worrying about what all these other men are doing and let's start worrying about ourselves, right? Let's put the focus back on the individual. And that's the point I was trying to make to him. But he was trying to say, well, the statistics say, and these girls are this. I'm like, okay, I understand that. But yeah, I get it. I think some of these women get attention they don't deserve. I agree. But again, at the same time, does that say more about the girls or does that say more about the guys? It says more about us. And I'm just, I'm just saying that maybe we need to start reevaluating how we talk to women or how we approach women, or maybe we should reevaluate our thought process. I don't know. Maybe it's all biological. I don't know. But I can tell you this. I'm not worried about what other men are doing. I'm more worried about what Steve Rose is doing. That's how I look at my life now. And whatever these other men do, if they want to simp, they want to do all these things, that's cool. Let them have at it. That's what's up. I'm not worried about what that man's doing. I'm going to worry about myself. Well, dating market's hard and they're not responding to DMs. I'm like, okay, I already know that. That's why I don't go on those websites anymore, like those dating apps. Those dating apps, for example, like you see on this, like Meet Me, Plenty of Fish, Zoosk, eHarmony, all these little like dating apps, right? They got, the dating apps are like catfish profiles with fake photos of men that are really guys behind those profiles, just sucking other men to cash app them. And it's just or it's just like a bot, or it's a girl that's from an OnlyFans or an OnlyFans, or they're from like some sort of like cam girl or something, Snapchat, and they'll put their links at the bottom and stuff. And so they kind of know these dudes are lonely, and so they'll go to these dating apps hoping to meet someone. Now, when I first went on dating apps, they were fun. 10 years ago, oh my God, it was the best time to go on these dating apps. It was the funnest time. Now they just suck. Now they're all that what I just said. And I guess if you're for most women, I guess dating apps are fun because you kind of have the ability, to have a bunch of guys coming to your DMs and stuff. And so you kind of have an ability to kind of enjoy the fruits of the labor, But at the same time, have you ever heard of overindulging in yourself? And this is the thing that I say the difference between men and women. Men and women suffer from loneliness in a different path, a different meaning. And I'll explain that. And that's what I was trying to tell Steve Holka on his channel. And Muslim Mate, if you want to go watch that video, just type Steve Holka and you'll see I actually went in there. I was trying to talk to him, but I agreed with some of the things he said, but like when I tried to actually have a conversation with him, he kept cutting me off. It's okay, no big deal. I like the guy. I have a lot of respect for him, but he just tends to think negative a lot. I was trying to get him to change that, if that makes sense. But anyways, what was I going to say? Men suffer from loneliness different than women do. Okay. So when men suffer from loneliness, the loneliness is not getting attention from girls, not getting DMs, not being acknowledged, right? That's our loneliness. That's the lonely path that men suffer. And they say, well, women don't suffer from loneliness because they get attention from a lot of guys and they don't deserve it. God damn it. And that's what you hear a lot of these guys crying about on the internet, which, okay, fine. Maybe that's true. Maybe that says more about the guys now, right? But at the same time, the girls go through loneliness a little bit different. Now you think, okay, well, they're getting all this attention. That's great, right? Okay, well, that's cool. Well, think of it if I went to McDonald's and I had $50 and I bought $50 worth of hamburgers. Now, yeah, I got some double quarter pounders with cheese, and I got a double quarter pounder here, and I got a McDouble, and I got a McFlurry. I got 5 McFlurries, right? So I got 5 McFlurries, okay? Now, yes, I have all these options of food, but is that good for me? No, because when I start eating through all the shit, I have bad cholesterol. I got a high my probably diabetes level. Well, I don't have diabetes, but I'll probably be borderline if probably that I was to continue on that path. And a lot of health problems come through that way. So yeah, I have the ability to eat at McDonald's, but it doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean it's healthy for me. It doesn't mean that long term it's not going to affect me. And I think that that's what men need to have an understanding. Yes, girls get more attention than us. Oh shit. But at the same time, what type of attention is that? You have to ask yourself. It's not good attention. It's attention. Like most of those guys probably just want to smash, right? Most of them just want to jerk off on the phone, whatever. You may have a percentage of them that are decent, but they're really hard to find because they're a needle in a haystack. You got 1,000 men telling you they're Mr. Right, but only one wants to marry you. Well, gee, that's going to be very fucking hard to pick. So yeah, these girls got a lot of selections, but they're not good. They're not great selections, and they're not longevity selections. So where the loneliness comes in, and this is where I kind of come up with this theory or this my mindset at. The loneliness comes from is that the grass is always greener, and I'm always going to find a better man, and therefore they just keep going from guy to guy to guy, and none of it is longevity. It's just probably either one night stands, random hookups, or guys that ghost them, or vice versa. And so after a while, your mind gets confused. You start to question yourself: if what I'm doing right? Is what I'm doing right? I'm about to read the comments. It's like, but what if am I doing is right? You start to question: am I worth anything more than just a one night stand? Am I worth anything more than just the one weekend at Perry's? Why did he ghost me? Or why did I ghost him? Oh, I didn't like him. So after a while, you get frustrated. So your loneliness comes from the fact that you can't lock down a man longevity. Sure, you get the dates. Sure, you get the one night stands. Sure, you may get some guys paying for you. Sure, you may get some decent times. But imagine having to get to know somebody every fucking week. That's gotta be very, very overwhelming after a while. Every week you gotta get to know somebody. Every week. What's your name? What do you like to do for a living? What's your favorite color? What do you like to do on Friday? What this or that? It's non-stop. Getting to know people you don't think after a while doesn't fuck with your mind. And that's what I'm saying. Women suffer through trauma. Men suffer through years of loneliness. Years of it being ignored. So we experience our stress differently. We experience our bad times differently. Just because women get a lot of attention doesn't necessarily it's good. That's why I see a lot of these guys online complaining. These women get more attention than us. Well, no fucking shit. I could have told you that. You know? I could have told your dumbass that. Well, yeah, even the ugly girls get attention. Okay, and that I could have told you that too. Well, these guys were just talking to any of these girls and they had those standards. I actually agree. I've had conversations with my father about this. Men used to actually have standards back then. They have no standards today. And I've had guys get mad at me for saying that. I'm like, well, what did I say was wrong? It's the truth. Guys just seem to fucking talk to anything nowadays. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just being honest. It's just you have to have these honest conversations. My dad was picky as fuck back then. And that's okay because the girls were picky too. It was an even level playing field. And it was an even level playing field for both people. They were men and women were required to put their best foot forward. People had to actually talk. You wanted to get better in the game, you had to go in there and go talk, and you had to get the practice and do it. And so, somewhere along the line, the guys just over a period of time had just lost a lot of sense of that. Now it's just like their standards are kind of in the mud. And I'm not saying this to bash or sound like I'm some white knight. I'm just saying it because that's what I see. If you ask for, like most women, for example, what's your ideal man, right? At least minimum paragraph long of their ideal man. And I guarantee you that most of them will be longer than the paragraph. It'll probably be a whole page of
their ideal man, and that's okay. That's fine. It's no big deal. Okay, that's you have a whole page or two or three your requirements of how your ideal man should be. Okay, fine. That's fine. There's no worries. Even if let's say some of it was unrealistic, that's okay. That's your resume, right? That's your resume. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. That just means that's your resume. Okay, it's your resume. Doesn't mean it's going to happen though. That's a different story. Now, with guys is, well, what kind of woman do you want to be with? You know, now if you'd have said it to the men in the 60s and 70s and 50s and all that shit, it would have been at least half a page, maybe 3/4 of a page. There's a little bit of explanative definition. Now, you see it today, if you were to ask the average guy, and I don't mean to sound like a white knight simp, but I'm just being honest, you ask them, what is your ideal woman? There's like 2 words in the paragraph, like 2 words or a sentence for most guys. Now, you might say, oh, well, that's just because men have become more simple, or men have become feminized, or whatever the case may be, or there's more simps, or whatever the case is. It's just whatever you want to call it, that's what it is. You ask the typical man, what type of woman you want? There's 2 words in that whole page. Well, wow, gee, that's it. You have nothing else? Oh, I mean, that's just that's the only thing I could come up with, and those were the 2 best words that I had to come up with. I'm like, wow, and it seems like I'm not going to say most men are like this, but I'm going to say at least about 60% of them fall in this criteria. It's just me being honest. It's like, you know, it's just the reality. I mean, if you want to call it simp, you want to call it weak man, I don't know. I don't know what you want to call it, but this is the reality of what it is. Most men's standards have definitely simmered down the last 50 years. For whatever reason, I don't know, but it's happened. It's the reality of what it is. It's the type of man, I agree. His list will be long. Shit. I don't believe that. Now, it's a 4th wall feminism. No, it's a paragraph long. Mine's just short. Well, that's good. Girls now. Oh, come on, King Twister. Don't say that. Especially now, you need a long time. Who gave them that laws? Attention is good, but alone, they really will. Yeah. It will be the right man, one night stand, but it's us men, it's a difference. Like I said, it's good to have these conversations, right? Attention is addiction. Oh, absolutely. Fuck attention. Like I said, you know, these kind of conversations draw out the best in everybody. And I see I can do that because I have the ability to talk. That's why when I go on these rants, my people tend to watch me all night. It's the reality of it. The truth is that men and women experience loneliness differently. Women get too much attention, men get less attention. There's no balance in the middle. I think that's where the balance is off. I think, Rachel said, do you think women tend to overdate? You mean like constantly on the move with different guys? Yes. Yes, I do. I think what we're experiencing now is that you're seeing a why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free. So I'll give you a case as an example. If women are just giving out sex, solely sex, and they're not requiring anything after that, right? They just want to hook up a random man. Okay, fine. As an adult, that's your decision. But the problem is that now men have developed this mindset. Okay, well, if I don't have to give her a relationship for that sex, then why buy the cow when I get the milk for free? So why should I give her a relationship if she's already given me the goods, right? So, yeah. And so then now you look at the other side. Girls like the provisionary, right? Like what, I'm not saying girls don't like sex, but let's just say the provisionary part, right? What can men provide for them? That's okay, that's fine. It's no big deal, right? So if guys are simping online, right, at a high number rate, and they're giving these girls money, they're giving them access to their bank account and their money, and they're just throwing money at these girls for just simply being a woman, right? Without any requirements to be anything other than just that. And the girls have developed the same concept. Why buy the cow when I get the milk for free? So why should I give these guys, these suckers, gentlemen, why should I give them a relationship when they're just giving me the money regardless? It's the same concept, just a different strategy. So if she's thinking, okay, he's just giving me the sucker, gentleman, is giving me money for just simply existing, why should I even bother giving him any respect when he doesn't even respect himself? And that's where you're kind of seeing this display. So like these girls feel like, why should I have to check my attitude when this sucker is still fucking giving in to me? When this sucker is still cash apping me? While this sucker is still giving me shit? I mean, that's why I was telling Steve Holka when he was explaining, when I was on his little show earlier, when he let me on, and he kept ranting and saying that, how guys were at such a disadvantage. And I said, although I agree to some extent, but if guys are rewarding women for bad behavior, then why buy the cow when you get the milk for free? Why should they have to check themselves if you're not giving them, if you're rewarding them for bad behavior? It's sort of like if you're a rich parent and your kids never worked, and then all of a sudden you say, hey, you got to get a job, but you've been giving them $5,000 here, $10,000 here. You gave them $3,000. You bought them a brand new whip. You bought them a brand new car. You bought them a Nintendo DS. You spoiled those rotten bastards to where now they defy you and they do not want to work. And that happens all the time, believe it or not. And now those kids don't want to work. You created a monster. That's the point that I'm making. And so does that say more about the kids, or does that say more about their parents who kept rewarding them for bad behavior? Same analogy. These men are rewarding women for bad behavior. That's why these girls can go online and say the dumbest, stupidest stuff. And there's guys extremely desperate animals in their DMs still rewarding their bad behavior. I'm starting to look at the guys now. I never did that in the past. I would always blame the girls. I'm like, no, I'm not looking at the guys now because they're the ones acting like this. You have to look at the root cause of the problem. Is that if these guys are going to keep rewarding for bad behavior, why would they change their ways? Think about it. You're going to reward me regardless. So why should I have to check anything about myself if you don't even have the balls to stand up for yourself? You can only have the balls to be a goddamn man and stand up for your goddamn self. You have no self-respect, obviously. Why should I respect you? And it's just, I can kind of see their point of view on it. Why should they? You don't even respect your own self. Why should I respect you? See? Y'all better be lucky y'all better be lucky I have a heart. I can talk about this kind of stuff and shake it off. But some people, shit, it opens up a can of worms. Man, what percentage of men can do that? That's true though, Stephen. I get offered things, but scared to take it. Oh, absolutely. No, they bear them simps. I don't care what looks. You got to care about looks a little bit because he is simply existing. There you go. You're talking about simps. We didn't develop it. Well, at least I got you guys engaged in a conversation. That's good. And again, I haven't made a video like this in a long time. Usually, when I start digging into politics, it starts swaying all over. I ramble, which is hence why I'm at a 2 hour and 38-minute mark on my video. And it's 2:12 in the morning here, Central Time. I don't know where you guys are, where you're at in the world, but yeah. But anyways, where am I at in this video? Where am I at? So like I said, I think women and men, you have to understand something that while these guys are crying on the internet about how these girls are doing this, they get all the attention. I'm like, listen, we have a different it gets easier when you start to understand that men and women there's a difference in how we process things and how our thought processes go into like the dating aspect. Women's dating experiences are different than ours, but there are some similarities. We just experience it in different ways. Like I said, loneliness. Man's loneliness is what? Years of being ignored, pretending or he just doesn't exist, right? That's the loneliness of a man, right? And it sucks. I know it does. It's a horrible feeling. I know friends that are going through that. There's been some times where I've had a year or two where that's happened to me. It's a shitty feeling, you know? For girls, they don't experience being ignored, but they experience too much attention and overindulgence, and that can be very bad. You know, imagine waking up and it's Groundhog's Day every day for women. They have to endure the same DMs, the same fucking bullshit every day from the same 50,000 guys. You know, girls are getting trolled with guys with probably sock accounts on these dating apps. They'll probably block a guy. He'll probably pop up with another fucking sock account. And this happens. I hear these things all the time. And they'll get guys DM them the craziest things, and you know, just some creepy shit. You got some really creepy guys out there that'll say the weirdest, outlandish stuff that makes zero sense. And then, of course, you'll have the desperate ones. You'll have the virgin gaming nerds. You got the gangsters that DM you. You got the fake online scams, and then you get the guys that are Cash App pay pigs and all that. I mean, to me, if you look at those 1,000 DMs that those girls are getting, if that's most of your DMs, that sucks. I would have to assume that's not fun. And I can guarantee you, out of 1,000 of those, maybe 100, maybe 75 are decent. And then it's even then, it's like a needle in a haystack. You have to sit there and weed out, and yeah, you're gonna weed out some guys that are probably decent candidates that you're either A, not attracted to, or B, they just they fell through the cracks. Maybe they might have DM'd you once, you might have passed it up. I mean, it happens, but you just have to go through the same thing every week. Get in to know a new guy, 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 get in to know a new guy. It's got to be tiring, right? Right? It's got to be tiring. And, it's just one of those things where you just never know. You just get, for girls, it's like, imagine being told the same lies every fucking day about the same guys every fucking day. And I always tell guys this when they say, well, these girls, look at they get all this attention, all these DMs. That's bullshit. And I'm like, well, put yourself in a position like this and think of it clearly. Play devil's advocate for a second. Imagine if you were a female, you were really attractive, or let's just say semi-attractive, or even ugly. It doesn't matter. You're getting attention, right? You know how men are. Would you entertain those DMs? And they always get quiet because they know where I'm going with this. The answer is no, because most of them are fucking lame retards. It just is what it is. I just said, put in your shoes. You know how guys are. You know how some of these lame guys are. I said, if you were a female, would you be entertaining all these DMs? No. I'm like, okay, well, then there's your answer. Kind of, to a degree, I don't really blame women for the way they are towards us, because, we give them the ability based on certain strategies to make them that way. Men fuel this. Women follow where the money goes, and they're following where the men are going. So if a bunch of guys are saying, I don't want to marry and stuff, okay, cool. So then that OnlyFans, webcam girls, all these, whatever, Cash App, whatever, then cool. Why buy the cow and you get the milk for free? Same argument, so it's just the power dynamic structure. It's like the employer versus the employee. Same thing. Now you're saying hypotheticals. Yeah. No, it'll be perfect. 75, laughed my ass off. That's the truth. That's how we communicate, obviously. You must have found red pill. No, I didn't found red pill. I don't follow any pills. I just look at the reality of the situation. Dude, I don't get mad. You know, it is what it is. I do think that, misery loves company. And that people, what you get in this world, you get back. So if you're always negative, be expecting that back. I believe if people want to be a part of your life and they enjoy having conversation with you, they enjoy talking to you, most of the time they'll try to keep in touch with you. Now that doesn't always work out sometimes because as you get older, people get married, they move on, they have kids. And that happens. But after a while, if people want to be a part, if you want to be a part of your life, they'll find a way to insert you in their schedule. That's what I believe. That's how I look at it. I don't. Reflect comes with negative and being bad mood stuff. Talking points are the same. That's good. I didn't know that. Yeah, I just try to, like for me personally at this stage of the game, I'm all about meeting cool and interesting people, but I also want to meet people that are going to bring positivity in my life, not negativity. I'm not saying you have to be perfect, like you have to be God's perfect child. None of us are perfect. God, even I'm not. But I'm not saying I don't like good drama here or there, but man, what man? I just want to meet people that are going to inspire me to want to be a better person. That I'm going to enjoy hanging around with, that are fun and exciting, and that's sort of how I look at the stage of the game now. At this part of my life, I just want peace. I just want peace in my life. That's it. This is, if that means having to try to steer out negative, that's just what I have to do. Yeah, Muslim mate, I agree. You know? You know what's crazy? Um, when I was younger, I used to think that whenever I went out, I had to go out with people. Like, I would never go to the movies by myself. I would never go to this place by myself. I'd never go out to eat by myself. I'd never go, hiking by myself. Always had that friends to go, which there's nothing wrong with that. You want to experience life with others. There's nothing wrong with having that friend or two or three. And then as you get older, I started doing things by myself. Does that make sense? I started going to movies by myself. I started going hiking by myself. I started recording my hikes and live streaming them. I go out and try new places to eat by myself. I started learning how to enjoy life without necessarily having to have somebody next to me all the time. And it kind of like made me more peaceful. It made sense. I kind of found more inner peace that way. Instead of always having to find somebody to, with always having to be around others. Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing better than traveling with another person. Like I've always wanted to do? backpack traveling. I see these YouTubers from time to time. They'll do like the van life. They'll live in their van in the fucking mountains. I'm like, man, that shit sounds like fun, bro. Or, you know, or just, getting a backpack, putting a bunch of shit in it and going hiking. Man, that shit sounds fun. I've always wanted to do that. No, you too? Yeah, it does sound fun, doesn't it? Hmm. The guy that I met, Muslim made, I had met in Fort Worth. He was a backpack traveler. This guy had a backpack full of stuff. And he was traveling to Tulsa to go gamble. And he went to go eat at a Starbucks. And in Fort Worth, he's from Keller, Texas. And he was telling me that he does backpack travel. And I said, who do you go with? By myself? I'm like, oh, shit. You have fun? He's like, yeah. I'm like, damn, that's what's up, man. He's like, yeah, I'm going to Tulsa on Sunday. I'm going to go try to get a free hotel from this one casino. If they'll let me get a free hotel, man, I can stay there for a day and stay at this other place for a day. And I said, maybe I need to try that. Maybe I need to do that, you know? And then me and him became friends. We exchanged info. And then he told me he was going to, next time I come to Dallas, well, he lives in Keller, remember, but he said that he'll meet up with me, and then he said he could take me all around Oklahoma, tell me all the places to go to, historical sites, casinos, restaurants. And I said, bro, I said, count me in. Marvin said, I agree with what you're saying that men are born losers early in life. Well, this is what I meant by that. Let me explain what I mean by that. What I mean by that is men are born without, in other words, we're kind of born on a blank slate. You have to create your character, and it takes time, right? So men are not born with value. We have to develop that value through like work, education, right connections, networking, right? That takes time, And for women, I think women are born with value. I think that's why you see like girls get a lot of attention, and that sort of makes sense. And they'll kind of say the most lavishing things, and they'll still get attention from guys. And so they'll still get kind of placed on that like pedestal, if that makes sense. So they get a lot of attention, and so that means they have some sort of value with something they're born with. But I think, and this is just from my personal opinion, I think that women tend to lose that value if the decisions they make in life render them later in life. I think they pay for those. I think they, in a sense, kind of pay for it later in life, to a degree. I think that men have no value, but if they develop it the years later in life, when they get older, they can kind of enjoy the fruits of their labor. So, if that makes sense. I didn't mean to say losers. I meant to say that they don't have any value unless value is created. Now, if men don't create any value, then they'll just be some 40-year-old loser or 50-year-old loser, right? Same sense. And now, the craziest thing is that for a man, because we don't put the looks and emphasis on men as much as we do on women, because women, they're more under that pressure and scrutiny to stay pretty, right? For that attention, right? And for guys, that's not necessarily the case, right? Men are more viewed on their success, blah, blah. That's like the most of their emphasis. Now, if they're good looking, if a man is good looking, that's even better. Hell, you even got a plus. but it's not the focal point of men, right? Um, but it's a plus if you look good and you're a man. Plus successful. But, at the same time, for women, they have to go through more of the beauty standards more. So that's what I'm saying, that as you get older for women, I think that it gets a lot more challenging based on their decisions they make early in life. And it can kind of be misleading because it's like, okay, you're dating all these guys, you're getting all these random hookups, and then, and it can affect you later in life, aka the trauma, and as well as other things. Now, men can be 40 and 50 and be a loser, and then all of a sudden, one day they become a successful businessman at 50. And they can still sort of enjoy the fruits of the labors. Men are on a financial time clock. Women are on a biological time clock. If that makes sense. That's the best way to put it in. Why would I want to go against you? I never said I want to go against you. I don't know what that means. Well, man, I've been spitting a lot of knowledge tonight. I'm glad that we can agree. I'm glad that we can agree to disagree. But at the end of the day, we all suck. Does that sound good? Does that make you feel better? At the end of the day, we all suck. Yay! We all suck at the end of the day. Let me see, what else did I want to say? I say at the end of the day, if you focus on yourself, your own path in life, and you do your own interest and do things you enjoy to do and create that happiness, you can spread that joy around everyone. And people will want to be around you. They're going to insert themselves in your life. People will sense that, I'm telling you. People pick up on those social cues. People do. They pick up on that. Well, I didn't mean that we all suck. I just meant to say we all suck, meaning that we all have our flaws. That's the best way to put it. That's what I'd say. That's what I meant to say. Steven's trolling. I'm not trolling. I don't troll all the time. I'm not trolling. Do I troll? For real? Okay, fine. I might troll from time to time. Yeah, human nature, we're all sinners. Thank you. Finally, somebody admits it. I don't think I was trolling. Was I? Okay, I do troll. Shit. Oh, that's it. Caitlin probably knows me more than I know myself. I troll sometimes. I don't think I was trolling. I think I was rambling. I don't think I was trolling.
So you just pop them. I would love to run for president, but how old do you have to be to run for president? I think it's 105 years old. I'm just kidding. No, you gotta be 40 to run. I think it's 29. Uh, but don't worry, one day I'm gonna run to be president. Try to win the election. But I forgot I'm not a billionaire. So I'm not gonna be able to run. We're all gonna win. We're all gonna be the president. I'm gonna win, and then Caitlin, you'll be the first lady. How's that sound? You know, I just said the first lady. You'll be the first lady. And I'll be the president. So I'm gonna have to get my campaign together. And I have to start running. I'm gonna run in 2032. Take some time off. I'll run in 2032 or 2036. I'll be the president. Make the announcement I'm running. Let the whole world know I'm coming. Y'all hear about the new about the news about the that lady that got killed at McDonald's? That one that was like a mother of six. She made that employee go home, and that employee came back and killed her. Oh, I heard about that shit. That was all over the news. Man, that's a shame, man. Now that's a shame. Not even safe anymore at your job. Shit. Just never know anymore. Muslim made what? Oh, you just jumped on? Somebody asked me, do I do collabs? I used to, hold on, let me look it up. Somebody asked earlier in the stream that I like let people come on. I used to do that back in the day. Yeah. He subbed and he said, "Oh, Tom, I appreciate that. I really do. I really do." Now I need to pop my damn back. I'm trying to get somebody to stand on my back. That way I can pop it. You guys ever had to pop your back? No, thank you guys for joining. I appreciate you guys for all taking the time to listen to my live stream. Hmm.
Yep. I'm trying right now to pop my back. You guys ever had you try to pop your lower back? You like have to twist it a certain way. I'll tell you, it sucks when getting older. Back pain, foot pain, sciatic nerve pain. Now that shit sucks. She put sheesh. She put sheesh. That's Caitlin for you. Our body's made cheap, bro. No, back pain sucks. Because you're talking that real. Back pain ain't no joke. Yeah, back pain sucks. Sciatic nerve pain sucks too. Or you guys ever scrunch your feet and it gets pain? You ever had that happen? Shit sucks. She's saying sheesh to the pain, yeah. No, back pain is the worst. I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemies. Back pain, knee pain. Well, it's 3:06, guys. And I'm going to get some sleep because I know I'm struggling to stay up. And I appreciate you guys for following me. And maybe y'all subscribe to my channel. Because I'm tired. I'm getting the fuck out of here. Y'all sub to my channel, all right? And I'll see y'all again.